I mean, uh, it was ingrained in society that a college education is so important that everybody started going to college. So many more people go to college now than used to 20 years ago, and now everybody has a college degree, which devalues a college degree. So half of these degrees out there right now are less than worthless because you can't find a good paying job. Not only that, but you owe 100 grand on a degree that you can't pay off.
Well, I don't know. They do it differently in other countries too. We get out of school here, and our kids go straight to college. And in other countries, they take time off. They go travel. They go see the world. They get cultured. But our kids get stuck here, and they've lived in the same small town their whole lives. They've went to school since they could walk, and they don't even understand that there's a world outside of this little bubble that they've been living in. Everybody who I know that has went to college is not doing work in the profession in which they went and got a degree for. There's not one person I know.
Something I think is interesting is that in this day and age where we're all the media, you can start your own businesses. So I see a lot of people starting their own businesses, and they're learning a lot from, online courses and YouTube channels and things like that. I have a degree in journalism, and I actually did become a journalist through starting my own media organization because I didn't want to go into mainstream media, because through my life and going to school for journalism, I learned that the mainstream media doesn't have the best intentions, and they skew stuff, and it's completely biased. And what I think is fascinating is that we have citizen journalism nowadays with the internet and with mass media, and all of us here on this stream and anybody that's going to be on the stream, we're all citizen journalists to a point. And so we take that seriously, and we do our research, and we present our research, and we back it up as best we can. And that's what I find is fascinating, is that the whole idea of media has now gone into the hands of the people. And that's why we, to the media or the people, the powers that be, we're so dangerous, because we can say whatever we want. And so then you come into this concept of social media censorship and big tech that are not beholden to the laws that our government is beholden to. And you have things like Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act that holds them not responsible for the things that we say, but yet they're going to silence a certain aspect of the communication that needs to happen. And as we all well know, the internet is our place for civil discourse. That is the arena for civil discourse, which is why it's so imperative that we are not censored.
Absolutely. I mean, in my opinion, every single day that Section 230 exists without reform, the government is choosing big tech's freedoms over the citizens of the United States of America.
I love how you brought up the idea of reform, because so many people they think that it needs to be repealed. And what will happen if it's repealed is that you're going to find we're not going to have any kind of place to speak at all online. So I love, Chantel, that you said the word reform. And I think more people need to be speaking to that, because I 100% agree with you. Okay, what's up?
As far as it goes,
I love when Mark disagrees.
You can completely remove 230. You can completely remove 230. The individual. Okay, here's the thing. Right now,
hold on, Mark, really quick. Once again, just because you're off topic already, we're not saying that it can't be done. We're saying that it's not feasible. It can be done.
It's completely feasible. It's completely feasible.
Wouldn't repealing 230 give them, full power to do anything they want on the internet?
They would be able to come in and say, all right, well, since we are going to be now held legally liable for what you say on our platform, in order to post something on our platform, you're going to have to make sure that you follow all these standards. And what I think would probably happen, it would be pretty much impossible to even get to say anything on those social media platforms, because their laws are going to be so stringent that they're going to freak out on people.
Right. Well, the way it's written right now, from what I understand, is that it gives them the power to use a sort of responsible discretion in what they allowed to, thrive and fester on the internet, and what they remove.
Well, that's just community standards.
Right.
That's not 230. Go ahead.
Well, the way it's worded. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, that has to do with the difference between an open platform and a publisher. If you choose to be a publisher and you choose to have input into the content that is posted to your I don't want to use platform because it's a specific legal term, to your services. If you want to have input to your services, you are now liable for what's on there. However, if you were to build an architecture where the user has the ability to turn on and off filters for content that they are exposed to, you no longer have to censor anyone. Right now, they've been able to remove politics from almost the entirety of social media. They can do it. They can flag things, and things can be put into categories. And if you can identify the types of content that people are posting and then correctly label and categorize them, you could just as easily allow the user to decide that they don't want to view politics. They don't want to view gory content. They don't want to view adult material, explicit material, things that you could easily tag all of these things. And on that page where you put in a username, your phone number, you click the little box for terms of service, remove the terms of service, put a whole bunch of little slide boxes on there. You get to go ahead and pick all your little slide boxes and hit enter.
Hi, I'm an insurance agent. There's a thing called liability. And a big thing with liability is you cannot provide a service to somebody hoping that they have enough either cognitive ability or will or give a fuckness or anything. You can't provide a service to somebody and just say, well, they didn't censor it. They didn't say they didn't want to see it. And it's kind of like, well, that doesn't matter because you're the adult here, you're the parent, and you're responsible for what goes on underneath of here. So by adding something like filters, that just opens you up to greater liability.
If they were to be considered a publisher in any way, if they consider themselves a publisher and they choose to have any sort of input into the content that's on their site, they would have to claim to be a publisher if you remove 230. And therefore, yes, you would be correct. However, if they're in no way, shape, or form doing anything other than, okay, every time you post a piece of content,
they are providing the platform for the voices to be heard. They don't have to do anything. By simply that platform existing, they are liable. Section 230 protects them from that. You repeal Section 230, they are liable. That's like saying, I have this building. You can come into this building and do whatever you want. It's an open space for everybody. You can come in and this building can be an office for taxes. This could be a porn shop over here. This could be a kid's daycare right here. This building is a free-for-all for everybody. And if you don't like things, don't go in the rooms. But if somebody trips and falls in that building and gets hurt, you're still liable for it because it's still your building and you still allowed them to come in. Plain and simple. Plain and simple, Mark. You can't argue. That's just it.
No, I see what you're saying, but I think that comes down to a societal standard that shouldn't exist. People should be responsible for their actions. If you choose to not turn on the proper sliders and then you see things you don't like, you should click the little I don't like this box next to it and continue on with your day.
What's going to motivate them to use the sliders? What happens when they forget to put something in the sliders? What happens when something leaks through the sliders? What happens when they put on, I don't want to see anything that has anything to do with Joe Biden? Because that triggers them. You know, they've been, now somebody is injured mentally. You've caused emotional distress because now they've seen Joe Biden. They said they didn't want to. They hit the slider, but now somebody's triggered because something slipped by. Who's liable for it? You are. That's not a foolproof plan. I mean, can it work to an extent? Sure. But you can't tell me that, like, just by hitting a slider that fixes your problem. Because I'll tell you right now, machine error is one of the biggest issues we have in technology right now.
I don't know if error is the problem. I think mishandling is
definitely the problem. The fact that people's content has just been massively taken off of Facebook. I'm sorry, Facebook doesn't employ that many people. There's trigger words. No, there's trigger words that can be filtered out, and then your whole post is deemed unacceptable. And the aspect of free speech in the United States of America is that you are not only able to speak what's on your mind, you can't be forced to say something that you don't want to say, and you have the right to read and verbally hear opinions of others. That is all in your free speech. By Twitter taking down Donald Trump Donald Trump off of their platform, they quite literally violated every single American's free speech.
That's my
By
issue
not
too.
letting
That's why I
Americans-
propose my solution.
What?
That's why I want to remove 230. That's why I would propose my solution. You're not removing anyone's content. You're just properly labeling it. And if we have filtering mechanisms and we have these automated systems that can remove an entire post because of a single flagged word, it could be reappropriated, used in a more efficient manner to go ahead and properly categorize people's content. I say get rid of
You're
it.
assuming that
kids
big tech is going to do that, though, because Chantel's right. Like, as when you're talking about liability,
Money.
big tech
They don't
isn't
want their
gonna-
sites to close. They don't want their sites to close, and they want
Okay.
advertising dollars.
all right, that's a valid point. I will take that point. I see that, but I still agree with Chantel that it needs to be reformed, not removed, because when you're talking about liability, it's just too complicated. That's all I'm saying. I do see what you're saying, though. They don't want their platforms to shut down, and I totally agree with that. 100%.
What kind of reform? What kind
I
of
don't know.
Well,
reform?
here's an example, Mark.
Hey guys,
Real quick.
hey guys, we got Mosquito Jones here in the on backstage. We're gonna pull him up with all of us, okay?
Okay,
Pull them up.
Okay.
Tell them roll up.
just real quick, Mark. I
Come on,
would say
man.
hello.
Bonjour.
How you doing, man?
I have no idea.
You don't know, dude, man, it's crazy, man. I can't wait for people to start showing up, brother.
Likewise. I'm
Man,
sorry
I'm-
I'm late, y'all. Girlfriend's here. We've been having a pretty heavy discussion. We're trying to figure out what the next step is as far as like what school she's going to, what town we might be moving to, where she might be staying for a little while, and et cetera, et cetera. So we will ignore all of that.
No, that's what the big old time window is for, man. Just whenever everybody can kind of swing in.
And here she is. Sorry, y'all.
All good. Mosquito Jones, how are you, man? I'm Ben.
At least let me sit.
No. Ladies and gentlemen,
What kind of reform?
Okay, but Mark, real
What do you
quick here. K through 12, right? I mean, schools,
Okay.
public schools, they use the internet, right? Though they've got to make sure that these kids aren't on sites. They're not. I mean, you've got to agree that you would think that there'd be some level of censorship to where they can't access certain websites like porn, right?
Well, that's private property. Your individual server, you can put a firewall on it at the school. They do
I'm
it
just
already.
saying they don't want,
It's
like,
already
that's a
there.
liability thing, Mark, for these schools. Is if my kid goes to school and sees porn, like, I can fucking sue somebody for that. Number one. My kid saw porn at school today. I picked her up and they were looking up research topics. They typed in girl names, like they had to make a story and they were looking at girl names. She saw a picture of two naked people kissing on Google Images. So
Maybe I-
regardless of all those firewalls and filters, Mark, that still slipped through. My kid saw that on her school's computer. All the firewalls, all the things,
Well,
all the
what-
censorship stuff still slips through.
What's the difference is if your kid sees that on the school computer versus if their friend comes up with their cell phone and shows them the same thing?
Oh no,
Right,
I'm not
Jackson's
complaining
titty.
that she saw it. I'm just saying that like that's an example of a platform or a server or whatever that they're using that is censoring information or blocking information, making sure that somebody's not seeing it, and still in a public school, that shit is leaking through. So I was trying to make the point that now you are in the whole aspect of the world. You can use all the filters that you want. Shit's gonna leak through.
So something I just want to jump in really quick and say, I was looking for the book, but I can't find it. So there's this attorney, his name's Jeff Kosef. He was a professor of cybersecurity law. He went to the Naval Academy. He wrote this book called The 26 Words That Created the Internet. I just bought it, but it's all about Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. And he thinks that it should be reformed and not repealed. And this was something that I was already thinking beforehand when I was doing my research projects. I'm an academic researcher that researches this stuff. And then I found him. So anyway, my intention is to read the book, but to answer you directly, I don't know the answer, but I'm hoping that I can find it. And I think this guy's kind of compelling. So I encourage to read him if you're interested, because it's a whole book
It'd be
on
interesting
that.
to see what people like. I haven't had anyone who is able to give me a proposal for reform that outweighed my opinion to simply remove it and put the content available to the user in the hands of the user.
Well, I think you should get educated because you can have an opinion that's not educated. And I'm not like jumping at you. I'm just saying like, yeah, you can say that, this or that, but I think that it warrants diving deeper to try to understand why somebody would think it should be reformed and not repealed. You see what I'm saying? As a journalist, I try to get all sides before I have an opinion. So I think there's a case that can be made for reform is what I'm saying, because when it comes to what Chantel was saying about liability, that just makes sense. It just makes sense that someone is going to be liable now for the speech that's on their platform. If they're legally responsible, that's important. I mean, that's legal.
Well, there's a difference between a public forum and an open platform and a published site. And that's one of the big things is if it's an open forum, if it's a public platform, there is no liability on the provider of the service because each individual is responsible for their content. So if someone posts content that gets through the filter and you're mad because your child saw porn on Facebook and they weren't supposed to, that would be the individual user's fault for not properly tagging their content.
Okay, Section 230 quite literally was designed and created specifically for an open platform. Like that's why it got created. So now what's the
in the early days of the internet before we had
It
yes.
doesn't matter. An open platform is an open platform.
When
Yeah,
230 was
evolved.
created, it was necessary. When 230 was created, it was
230
necessary.
exists was because of an open platform.
It's a little bit more nuanced too, because if you think about it, like, and I'm just trying to bring this down to reality for a second. I know we're all trying to get there. It's like, I think what is really happening is these companies are using they're brandishing their community standards about like a tool to shut anybody up for any reason. That's what I'm seeing anyway. Practically, that's what I'm seeing, where they're like, oh, that's against our community standards. So really it comes down to a lot of this is community standards. They're able to just say, oh, I don't know, I just pulled your content because community standards. And that's really annoying because then you can't like what?
Sorry.
Oh, then you can't hammer down on the reasoning when they're just citing community standards. And that to me is kind of irritating because you want the truth. You want to understand, Anyway, that's one
Well,
thing.
It's kind of like what Chantel is stressed in one of her videos she made. She was like, if you're going to take me down for something, at least take me down for something I actually did.
Yeah.
Like it's like it was a 60-second rant and you're getting me for adult nudity and sexual activity. I'm like,
Hate speech, whatever the case may be.
best. Oh my God, Chantel made the most savage video. Holy!
Oh yeah, right.
Oh, I went full ho-ish for a second.
When I saw it, I was like, that red button that says AYEEE.
I'm like, Chantel lost it, and I am here for it.
There's that big red button in capital letters says AYEEE. Chantel went. Bah!
I think so. There's two core elements of this. Is that number one, whatever you want to find on the internet, you are going to be able to find, bar none. Whether you're a minor or not, the internet is a wild place. So I think the fundamental question for as conservatives or whatever you guys identify as, should the internet be censored, especially these major platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube? Should they be censored? I think they should to a degree. And if that is the case, how do we go about censoring it?
Well, I've already made my opinion clear. I don't believe in censorship.
In any way?
No.
So what about like
if someone wants to get on and
pornography
say
or
racial
terrorist
pejoratives,
activity
if
or-
someone wants to get on and have sex with their partner on a live stream, I think it should be allowed.
Well,
Fuck
sure.
I think the internet is an open public forum.
But that's a very it's a non-threatening issue what you're talking about here. I'm talking about like child porn or maybe like Al Qaeda centralizing in the United States.
Or
You
how
don't
about
have to specifically
historically-
you don't have to specifically censor the internet to prevent those kind of things. Those are already crimes. Those are already illegal. And involving the internet doesn't change that that's already illegal and already a crime. If someone wants to post that to the internet where it can now be cataloged as evidence, they're only compounding the risk of the crime they're already committing. Those things are already illegal.
okay,
We
but
don't have to censor the internet to make those illegal.
Well, you could use the same argument against gun laws, is that if a gun's illegal, it's not going to stop people from getting them.
Historically
I
speaking,
don't believe in gun laws. I don't
well,
believe in any gun laws.
let's go to the core of what Blue Collar Ben just brought into the discussion was, should things be censored on the internet? Now, as a journalist, I can go back into history, back into the 60s, where you had the study of something called cultivation theory, which is the media theory saying that images and messages that you receive through media outlets can cause you to be violent, or it's the question, right? It's the question of, can you watch something and can it cause you to do bad things, right? And so it brings up the question of, is there dangerous media? Okay. So this is the question. And they started to do, research and testing, a scientific method toward all of this to see, well, when you intake certain messages, does it make you violent? All that. So that's back in the 60s. Well, so what I find fascinating is that I actually started to put together an academic study with a team of professors here in Fort Worth, Texas, to look into YouTube specifically, look at conspiracy theories and say, is there dangerous media? Why? Because I was noticing that social media platforms were starting to censor, saying that's dangerous content. My question was, okay, well, but is it dangerous content? Prove that it's dangerous content. So what did I do? I went into YouTube and I started pulling content to say, we're going to actually apply the scientific method to this. I want to take this, and then I want to take psychological studies that will take a linguistic analysis of certain words that are used. And we're going to apply this over here. And we're going to see over time, do people become more violent? Do their words become more violent? You see what I'm saying? So we're pulling in multiple different aspects of academia to bring it in to have this discussion. Now, what was crazy was that what I noticed, or what I found, was that as we're starting to do this study, YouTube starts to deplatform half of the channels that we were going to implement into the study. This angered me to no extent as an academic researcher, going, how can I confirm or deny the claims that you, social media, are making if you're pulling content before we as researchers and scientists can go in and get that data and confirm or deny what you're saying? That to me was a huge sign that this had absolutely nothing to do with whether or not this media was dangerous. It had a lot more to do with control. And this was happening right before the election. And I started to see all these narratives play out. And this was back in 2018. And it's just gotten consistently worse. We moved our study over to Twitter, and then Twitter started deplatforming people. And I covered the Capitol event, that when people went to protest at the Capitol, I was covering it in a non-biased way. All I was doing was reporting the news, and they were pulling my content down. They were removing followers from me. And I'm not the only one. It's been happening now for like over a month. People have just been getting censored across the board. So my question is, where can I actually do this study? Is it even possible? Or am I watching the death of the data and there's no way that I can actually look at it and actually confirm or deny these claims? It blows my mind. It blows my mind. We live in a very interesting time.
So a couple things to point out. I feel like, to start off with, I feel like the media and social media in general need to have a dictionary. They need, because if you look at the definition of warranty in everyday life, I mean, what's a warranty? Usually that's something that protects, me or you, or something that we own. Now, if you look at the definition, the legal definition of warranty, is claiming that a statement that you're making is true. That's a warranty. That's the legal definition. So is that content dangerous? Maybe in your terms, no. But is it dangerous to the term or the aspect that they want to apply to? Because if you think about it, no, it's not really dangerous. Is it promoting violence? Probably not. But is it promoting free thinking? Maybe. And that's pretty fucking dangerous if you ask them. You know what I mean? So I think that in general, the media needs to have a legitimate, a published, a recognized dictionary, because you can't use just, are they using the legal definition of this, or are they using the Webster's English Dictionary definition of this? Number one. Number two, if you look at today's society, people are so influenced by stuff that they see online. So I think it would be naive to think that watching anybody's content, regardless of what it is, doesn't influence you in any way, shape, or form. Whether you're watching my content and I'm just ranting about Donald Trump, and that influences you to do research either for or against me, or you go see somebody raping somebody or murdering somebody or hurting kids or hurting animals. views are huge to people, likes are huge to people, popularity online. People don't care if people like him in real life, but am I liked online? Because like that's where I live, you know. And so I think it's stupid to think that
No,
what
but the
you
ones
on the
who
internet
do, we're tight.
doesn't. Yeah, exactly. So
Well,
I mean, people are going to do what it takes to be recognized or accepted because I feel like that's human nature. You want to be one with the peers. You want to feel wanted. You want to feel important on any level. So I mean,
You don't feel
if I see
relevant.
this person doing something and maybe I want to also do that, like why wouldn't I do that? So I think censorship is needed, and I think that it's important, and I think that not censoring anything is dangerous. But like, goddamn, there's a fucking limit. Like, and
I just,
both sides. Like, hi, if I show you my under tits and it gets taken down for nudity, that girl's ass better get taken down too. Like, hello? Or if I'm talking shit on Donald Trump or on Joe Biden, like if you're talking shit on Donald Trump, that better get taken down too. If I'm saying that I support pro-life and they're saying that they support pro-choice and mine gets taken down, yours better too. Because if abortion is what's needing to be censored here, regardless of what side you sit on it, it all needs to get taken down. There needs to be this
Justice.
is pretty left leaning here, but there needs to be equality.
what?
I mean,
All right.
First of all, nobody says under tit. It's called under boob. Second of all, you guys are talking about more of like, maybe an adolescent mind being influenced by what they see on social media or what they see on the internet. Where when I talk about censorship, I'm more talking about like people actually conspiring, groups coming together. Say like, if I, send Jace a Twitter message and said, hey, we're going to be at the southwest door of the Capitol on this day at this time, bring these weapons, and then it turned into this big group. I think Twitter should have the power to shut that down because that's actual, conspiracy to commit crimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Sure,
talking about too, by the way. I wasn't just talking
That's
about
specifically-
teenagers being influenced. I'm talking
Sure.
about dangerous media. The whole idea is that it actually causes people, incites them to violence. That's literally what I'm talking about. So I'm on the same page with you is all I'm saying.
Right.
I
So
agree
we-
with you.
But that's
Most people agree that
conspiracy
there
and a
is
call to violence. That's conspiracy and a call to violence. That's already specifically illegal.
Right, but so like a
So
platform like
Twitter would
Twitter
already be
gives them,
covered. to
What
go
kind
ahead
of
and-
media and behavior leads to that? That's the whole point. That's the crux of it. That's what's being censored.
well,
they're
you have a
looking
point
at
there.
something and they're going, this kind of stuff leads to that, therefore we're going to censor that. That's the core of the issue. That's exactly what's happening
I
right
don't think
now.
they should have
Yeah,
the right.
okay, so
I don't think they should have the right. I don't care if it leads to those kind of things. I don't care if allowing people to speak to others could rise to the point where they conspire. The ability for people to communicate shouldn't be censored just because some people will use it inappropriately. You could go around and say that we should ban cars because some people drink and drive. We should ban guns because some people shoot each other, or we should get rid of all the stop signs because people don't listen to them anyway. Like, it's flawed logic. It doesn't matter. Like it doesn't. We specifically have laws against these kind of things. If they choose to break those laws,
You're straw
then
manning,
Twitter will
bro.
obviously
You're
be covered
taking
doing
one little tiny thing and attacking that as though it's the whole argument, hun. That's
well, the point is-
that right there is faulty logic. What you're doing right now is faulty logic.
thank you.
I hear
it.
it.
No,
You're saying-
no, how so? How so?
You're taking one little thing and you're saying, "Oh, this is whatever." You can
It's two way different
have
perspectives.
your opinions, but don't come at it as though your opinion is more important than everybody else's. That's all I'm saying.
Here, look, it's all just my opinion. On
I don't
this.
take anything
Just my
personally.
opinion. But here's how I look at this. If you don't want your child seeing things on the internet that you don't
You just
approve
said
of,
you don't care if
then
media
you
is
should be in
dangerous and
charge
causes
of
people to
what
get
your children
violent,
see on
which
the
is a little bit
Keep it
weird.
off the internet.
Did
Well,
what?
I mean, the way I see it is like, I don't know. Maybe there shouldn't be any censorship. I'm not completely sold either way. But a platform, a known platform, a multi-billion-dollar company like Twitter gives people the opportunity to congregate and to let this like sort of ideology, and I don't mean to use ideology, but like let a conspiracy fester where otherwise would not.
Yeah, I agree with
Hey,
that.
so I want hey Mosquito Jones, dude, what's your real name, man?
Anthony.
Anthony, I just want to give you a chance to introduce yourself, kind of give yourself a little background to these guys before. We're not, obviously, we don't have that many people here yet, you know, still waiting on some people to show up. But yeah, just
You guys
introduce
split up.
yourself, kind of give a little background, where you're from.
Oh, okay. Well, my name is Anthony. I live on a mosquito farm in Alabama, and I've been trying to escape since my youth. Made it to Birmingham and then got dragged all the way back. And now I'm here.
What's a mosquito farm? Is that a real thing?
No. Okay, so
Oh, okay.
Like a
so
swamp
it's
area.
so the so let me put it like this. You know how a lot of people pretend to be farmers but have never seen mud in their life?
Yeah.
Those folks with them lifted trucks that can't lift a bale of hay.
Yeah.
Those
I live in
familiar.
Maryland. We got lots of that.
I live in
I'm
South
surrounded
Dakota.
by
with that
those
mayor.
people. Like seriously, I'm surrounded by them. So the only thing we're farming out here is mosquitoes off of their fat asses. So
Man, in my town, we got dudes that wear Spurs out to the bar. Man, I hate those guys. I'm not there.
bro, I've met
I'm like, dude, you breaking horses in here, man? You got some
you.
horses to break? Yeah,
Like, brother.
Stephenville, Texas. Hell
I got
yeah.
a pair of Spurs for a Halloween costume.
like I'm at this point I'm waiting for somebody to start calling a stolen valor on this nonsense. Because if you can't plant a field, you should not be running around dressed up as a farmer. If you got on overalls, you need to be able to handle a hoe and a shovel and possibly a barn full of fresh manure. If you can't do that, take off them overalls, take off them boots. You ain't earned them. Quit it.
I can roll. What is wrong with you?
Thanks for having me, Jace. I gotta jump off. Y'all have a wonderful night. Thanks for chatting.
Jason, I'll see you later.
Bye.
Too. But yeah, I'm also still
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to get this secondary camera of mine to work. So don't mind me and my forehead here.
Glad to have you. You're the only opposing political party that showed up.
Oh well, let me step up. I don't have opposition when it comes to any kind of political anything.
That's
For lack of a better
kind of the whole- That's kind of the
No, no,
whole.
let me step back. Let me step back. I am
Right.
extremely hostile towards a massive group of people, but I don't consider them opposition. They are obstacles. The end result that I'm aiming for is the truth and balance, peace.
Opposite cults.
If they want to oppose peace and balance, then I'm not interested in dealing with them. That's just the way I am. It's a waste of my energy to go to war with people who are one, not qualified, and two, not interested in a positive outcome. They only want control. They are not looking after their enemies.
Sure.
So
Mosquito
yeah, I don't
Jones,
have opposition. I have obstacles,
let me.
and those obstacles can be turned into allies and assets real quick.
So
How do you
you're
feel
trying
about
to. So
the,
what you're saying is you're just trying to move forward and progress in who you are, and whoever kind of joins in with you on the way is.
It's easy to assume that, but unfortunately, no. I don't particularly care what happens with me. In fact, if y'all watch my content, I mentioned it before. My death is actually part of my plans. Where
Are
I
you
end
at
up
Mosquito
isn't
Jones?
important. It's huh?
Are you at Mosquito Jones?
Yes.
Just like that on the screen?
Yeah. But like
I'm gonna follow you.
my death is literally part of my plans. The simple fact is, if I do what I need to do correctly, people will be harder to manipulate, less malleable, and more devoted to actually doing right. That's all. It doesn't matter what I tell them. If they are set on finding the truth, they will. And as long as I'm working towards getting them towards the truth, I can't hurt them. So long as
Where
I do right.
politically do you identify? How do you identify politically?
Trailer Park
Well, you're gonna
Supervillain.
find this shocking, but I used to be a Republican. Now I'm unaffiliated. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
It's. I was
I
a
mean-
Republican before I started paying attention.
That's a gray. That's an independent, like gray area.
No, it's really not.
Unaffiliated. Okay.
No,
I
I
It-
guess what are
It
your,
says here you're a Trailer Park supervillain.
yes. Also, human plot twist.
I'm just messing with you, man.
also
Yeah.
your plot twist?
This man's just funny.
Yeah.
So I guess what are the obstacles that you're okay, what do you consider peace, and how does that look in a way of how does one do things peacefully that is productive, and what obstacles are, I guess, what are your obstacles? You said you don't have, I don't remember what you said, but you said you have obstacles. What are those obstacles? What group of people are posing which obstacles that you are trying to overcome?
So here's where I get to build up context. All right, let's take Jace for a second. He would typically in most folks' eyes be considered opposition. The obstacle with him is getting him to understand where I'm coming from and not be willing but eager to join whatever mission I'm working with. Let's say Moral of People here, never met the man, never spoke to him. But if there was an obstacle with him, it would be trying to make sure that we're both on the same page before the discussion begins. It's a matter of making. No, go ahead.
And real
By
quick,
trying to get somebody on your same page, is that like you expect other people to budge to get to your level, but you won't budge to get to anybody else's?
It would seem that way if I had a particular page to be standing on. Wherever
Well,
I
but
go,
you said that you want to get the people
to the
on the
same
same page. That gives the
Yes.
impression that you have a page to stand on.
It does. If I had a page to stand on. The trouble is that I don't have what I call concrete morality. I have ethics that I've been to, but if I have a situation where I have to change up my behavior, I can do that as long as it's gonna fit what I need done. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I'm a perfectly ethical person, but if it's gonna give me the outcome I need to happen, then I'm gonna pursue that outcome, even if I have to change my position on things. Why do I do that?
Changing your position.
I'm okay with changing my position so long as the outcome is positive and, well, not positive, but better than the one that was coming beforehand. Let's say, I'm going to give a parable. Let's say that I was going to go to a town, buy a house, get a job, and live there for 5 years. I meet 3 people, 2 of which are on my side when it comes to my own ideologies, but one is completely opposed. But the 2 that I'm working with are idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. It does me no good to be aligned with those idiots when the other person is actually smart enough to understand the concept. If I can work with the person that's smarter, even if he's on the opposite side of the spectrum, there's a good chance of us coming together to build a solution that actually helps. The 2 idiots might be on my side, but they're slowing me down. Progress comes when bad ideas are stripped down for the good parts and attached to good ideas. When those good ideas are given ground and focus and material to evolve, that's when good things can occur. So in the end, it's not about me. That's the thing I want a lot of folks to understand. No matter what I do, my work has never been about me. I intend to die at some point in time. At some point, every last one of us has to die. My death will be a catalyst to the end of the work I need to do. And that work is removing barriers between people that they voluntarily set up. If you can't listen to your neighbor, you should not interact with your neighbor. If you can't interact with your neighbor, that's not a neighbor. That's an obstacle.
I would be 100%.
The obstacle is us being separated and believing that we have to stay that way. I could work towards the goals of those that consider themselves my enemies so long as the outcome benefits my nation, my people, and my community. If they can't destroy me, then I can build off of whatever they come forward with. Also, again, sorry about the only forehead thing, but
let me ask you something, Mr. Jones, and I'd like to ask Jace and anybody else out here, as far as keeping it mainstream, if you will, as far as the political talking points we hear about, what the news commentators talk about, what we hear on the radio, what we hear on TikTok, what are the real issues going on in the United States right now? What are the most important issues to all of you?
Here's my best comparison that I can give to the media. So let's take media and let's think pharmaceuticals for a second. Now, New Zealand is the only other country other than the United States that can sell pharmaceuticals to the consumer without it being approved by the WHO or the FDA or the whatever. USA.
Well, it has to be approved, but they're able to market it to the consumer rather than the medical professional.
Yes, exactly. United States, New Zealand. The laws, the rules for the media now for America applies the same way with the media. That reporter, that asshole reporter or whatever, from whoever takes that picture to whoever writes that title, they don't have to have a filter. They don't anymore. I remember growing up, like being a little kid, and I used to hear people say, like, what, you don't watch the news? Like, what's going on? Like back then, if you didn't watch the news, you weren't updated. You didn't know anything. And now all these different people have all these different ideologies that they swear up and down that that they get from all these different news sources, and it all doesn't match up. And
so let me reword the question. If you could change one thing in the United States to make our country better, both for ourselves and to serve the rest of the planet, what would that one thing be?
Ooh.
Go ahead, Mosquito Jones. You don't have to raise your hand.
Recidivism.
yeah.
Ending recidivism, hands down. End of discussion right there. Recidivism is the process by which people go back to incarceration at any level for any reason. If I can make that shit stop happening, this whole country changes. That about 4 years behind that specifically. Reason being, Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Where's like the reasonable, not reasonable? Where's that barrier?
So the trick with recidivism is remembering that the folks that go back, they have a situation that's ongoing. When we send someone to jail, even if it's just county jail for 90 days, we can completely destabilize their life. They can lose their job. They lose their house if they haven't been paying the mortgage. They lose their apartment if they haven't been paying the rent. They got a car that's not paid off. They lose that car. That's coming back out starting on ground zero at best. If you have a felony, you damn sure ain't getting anywhere easy. And if you have something serious like rape, murder, or drug trafficking, you're really not getting anywhere. So let's say that this person who on a really, really bad run, driving, let's say cocaine from Arizona to Colorado, gets caught. He spends 3 years in prison. He's now out. He's a felon. He's got drug trafficking on his record. He's not getting a job. He got to do something to get money, something to put food on his plate. So he's probably going back to committing crimes. Those crimes affect the societies around him, and they won't be giving him any mercy, specifically because he's affected that society. So now we have two problems that he has to face. Either he has to make a way or find a way. Two things he cannot do, because finding a way, everybody's put a barrier in it. Can't get a job. Nobody's renting to felons. Nobody's going to give you any mercy with something crazy. It's drug trafficking, murder, or rape on your system.
Now let's be the I'll be the devil's advocate here. Now you can get a job. He can certainly get a job. Maybe not.
Right.
He's not going to be a a Wall Street banker or anything. He's not going to get hired.
On this also, continue, Ben.
He's not going to get hired at a law firm by any means. And it's also not to say that he couldn't go into business for himself. He could absolutely go into any sort of endeavor as an entrepreneur.
I actually want to put a pin in it because that's one of the things I actually want to work with people on. So let's make sure to put a pin on that thought because I want to come back to it. But continue, please.
No, I mean you have a valid point that being convicted as a felon certainly limits what you're able to do in this country.
Right.
But I don't think it's a game ender in a way that a lot of people think it is.
So it shouldn't be a game ender, and under a properly balanced and reasonable justice system, it wouldn't be. But the problem is social consequences that follow it. Who actually wants to hire a felon? Not very many people. Some folks
I wouldn't want to if I had the choice.
Right. Now, and how many employees don't have the choice? Specifically, if you have a job that goes onto any publication, Craigslist even, you're going to get at least 2 applicants. If both of them are felons, you might hire a felon. But if 3 of them show up and one of them's not, he's most likely going to get that job. There's always a mark against him. So what I try to do is teach people, hey, look, since nobody's going to give you a job, you can swing a paintbrush, right? We got somebody over here that's willing to give you $500 if you're willing to pay them back $8. Make sure you do it in a couple of months, and you can go start you an LLC, swing a paintbrush for a little while, make some money, stay out of trouble. Right. If you were selling drugs in the first place, you already know how to market. You can find customers. You couldn't advertise before. You damn sure can now. There are things that I had to learn people were not only not exposed to, but actively kept from being able to do. And being able to do these things reduces recidivism rate because they are removed from desperation factors such as poverty, boredom, and opportunity. It's really, 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 really difficult to go get into trouble with a whole gang of people if you are busy working at a job you created for yourself. Even harder to get into trouble when you have money coming in that you don't have to worry about the illegality of. And even harder to get in trouble when you don't fucking want it.
You make some excellent points.
Yeah, it's a matter of not just changing the environment. You have to get them obsessed with the work of doing better, obsessed with the work of self-care. and that counters the recidivism of one person by one person by one person. And as long as that continues on, they set an example for those to follow. So let's say I get one person to end his own recidivism possibilities. He can be an influence on the next guy. He influences two, they influence two, and that continues going on. But I do that every single day for, let's say, 30 years. How many people could that be?
So
I got a
is
question.
Go ahead.
Go.
Whoever that was.
Go. If
Is
our
there a stance
goal
more
is
on-
go ahead.
In this
You got the
case,
floor.
let's
You
go
got the
with
floor.
more.
You got the floor. Go ahead.
Well, my question real quick is if a goal is to form somewhat of a cultural and ideological shift, couldn't it be more productive to focus on the general populace and therefore preventing crime to start with than it would be to have to rehab people?
So we've tried that. In fact, the mass majority of folks don't want to commit crimes. And truth be told, most of those that do end up committing crimes don't want to either. It's a matter of what happens and when you get caught. Following that, there's plenty of people who are already working on helping the general population. There are very few working on the level of getting people out of prison and keeping them out of prison. And truth be told, if I can get people who are going back to prison to stop, you'll notice the prison population drop drastically. More than 60% of those who are incarcerated have been incarcerated before. And those who are out of the first time incarceration group, 60% have a risk of going back. 30% have a risk of going back and staying there. So if I can, yeah, and it's not even always big charges. Like recidivism can start with just getting arrested over some parking tickets, and then when that cycle begins, you end up like if you have a failure to appear warrant. Now that changes what the system will treat you like if you get another arrest. You ain't getting bail this time because you didn't show up for your court date before. If you are in jail for a long enough time, you will lose your job, and that begins the destabilization cycle. If we can stop that destabilization in each and every person as they leave incarceration, from the moment they leave that door, a prison to profession pipeline, that stops that. It doesn't stop recidivism, all right, because everybody's not going to do right, but it does drastically decrease the population to a point that now we have to reshape the prison system. You can't build a prison system meant to house and incarcerate 1 million if you've only got 5,000. And then if we can cut that 5,000 down even further with active, direct, and deliberate counseling, now that 5,000 shrinks. It's really, really hard to have a society built around crime and punishment when there's not as much crime going on, because everybody now has the opportunity to get around it, and those who would commit crimes don't have the backup nor the system to create them. It's really, really, like there's some like really determined criminals who will do it, but that's that 5,000 we got to worry about rather than a couple million who are just buying drugs, running red lights, drifting down the street on the wrong day and then hits a cop's car.
I think there needs to be emphasis though on like you're not just buying drugs. Like that's an issue.
Right. So the whole pathway with drugs, let's say we just talking about weed that was actually grown in South America.
If we're talking about weed, then I don't have an argument.
Oh, no. This weed, in this case, I'm using the simplest, most straightforward, and easy to describe one, because everything else requires a process that I'm just not willing to go into right now. But weed, let's say it's just grown and shipped, it's sold. That means that somebody had to buy the land out in South America. Somebody had to monitor and secure it. Somebody had to buy it and maintain the seeds. There was a whole lot of resources that went into it before it hit the border. That means that somebody with resources brought it there, and somebody with resources took it over. But the only person that's risking going to prison for it is the person that buys it, the person that sells it, and the person that uses it. Now, that applies to all drugs. The only people that incarceration the only people that if you incarcerated them, it would stop the flow of drugs would be the people with resources. Those who own the land, those who own the materials, those who use the water, those who bring it around. Those who sell it ain't really useful. You arrest them, what are they gonna do? There's somebody else is gonna sell it. You arrest the ones that are buying it, cool. All you did was make sure the product is now more valuable.
Now, is this an argument that's exclusive to like drug offenders, or are we talking about violent offenders?
Drugs, what's the point? The pivotal point with drugs is money. Things like weapons is power. You have rapists. There are some crimes that I do fully believe shouldn't even make it to court, but that's just me. I'm not a good person. I've already stated that. But like it doesn't just apply to drugs. If it's even things like theft especially, if you've stolen something, you didn't have it, and there's a reason that you didn't use money. You didn't have that. So if I can teach you to like run a business, you're not going to be repeating that offense. But one of our biggest like incarceration points is drug offenses.
I wish John Dawson was here to hear that.
And I think a lot of conservatives will disagree with me, but I believe personally that drugs should be, by and large, fully legalized. I take a very sort of European progressive approach to the drug problem. We spend way too much trying to enforce something, trying to wage a war that we will never win.
Right.
So they've focused more resources on helping people get off of drugs rather than trying to enforce drug laws.
Right.
I have an issue with the idea. So I'm going to agree, Ben. I'm going to agree that I don't see an issue with people making choices related to their own body and their own health. Do whatever you want to do. Use whatever you want to use. Consume whatever you want to consume. However, the sticking point for me has to do with the fact that a lot of times it comes down to things such as medical treatment or state subsidies, things of that nature, to facilitate those who make those choices. Right. I believe if you choose to become involved in drugs, I don't want my money or the state or any of the community resources to be negatively impacted by your choice.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. Now, are you aware? I don't mean to like put you on the spot, but do you have any idea how much money the DEA soaks up in their annual budget?
Not off the top of my head.
You wouldn't believe it. And the cost to cover what we're talking about wouldn't even come close to what we spend on trying to enforce drug laws.
Hell, just the trials, dude.
And I should probably do a little bit more research on that. But I mean, I wrote papers on it when I was in college. But at least several years ago, that was a complete fact. That the cost analysis doesn't even come close.
Oh no, I'm not objecting to decriminalization of all substances.
Sure.
I'm not objecting
to allocating funds.
What Morrill seems to be objecting to is the utilization of his resources that he put to work that he could have been using for himself to help somebody else get high without putting anything into it. And while I again recognize that's fully valid, I'm gonna be honest, not the way that tends to go. The government programs that do help drug addicts are things like getting them access to rehab centers, not actually running. Getting them things like a needle exchange so that they don't start contracting and spreading diseases that then people go to hospitals to get checked on that they then never pay for. Is to get them access to temporary housing so that they're not full-time homeless and start committing more crimes.
Well, that's true too. I mean, I live in
it's just a matter of Morrill has a completely valid point. It shouldn't be on him to buy me my next blunt, but it does make sense to make sure that it does make sense though to have the resources that are already available out there to make sure that I'm not doing anything stupid to get that next blunt. You know?
Okay, but can I just
I still disagree.
Okay, wait.
Hold on. We need to get back to the I had some important questions for Mosquito Jones. So back to recidivism.
Yeah.
Is the approach to create a more lenient justice system, or is the approach to create a more lenient society after the justice system has run its course on an individual?
Leniency isn't the goal. It's access and capability it's access and stability. Leniency isn't the job of the society nor the prison system. It's just they're not designed that way.
Well, you're talking about like after hiring somebody after they've been convicted of a felon.
Not even hiring, just making sure that when they come out those gates, they're not coming back. I personally don't care what the method is, as long as it doesn't require them dying or being reincarcerated or otherwise being restricted. If I can make a way for them to have a normal life, cool. But I'm not going to sit here under the delusion that I can. Instead, what I want is for people who are coming out of prison, since they already got to report to a parole officer, to have someone in that parole officer's like Rolodex that they can then connect that person to. A therapist, a doctor, a lawyer, or whoever they need to talk to get their shit together. Because point blank, if they don't get their shit together, we're still paying taxes to keep them alive, and they're not going to be able to produce anything.
Or your pay. I mean, one of the big. I mean, I'm gonna make it broader than defund the police, but defund the system. I mean, to do something like that would cost a
It
lot
would
of
be destabilizing, wouldn't
because,
it?
I mean, people are a byproduct of their surroundings, if you will. And a lot of times when people leave jail, they're not going and living somewhere else or hanging out with different people, or
Right.
they're not like, okay, you've entered the system, now you've exited the system, but you're going back into your same habitat.
Right.
So
Mm.
if you to incentive
Your audio's
expect
dead.
them to not go back because you have more structure in the system. And if you do, if that is a thing, okay, but that costs a lot of money because I'm sorry, you get into dangerous places and it's above these guys' pay grades. It's above these parole officers' pay grades. It's like, I'm not gonna go put myself in a situation that's gonna get me killed because I make $36,000 a year. I'm not gonna go. So I mean, what I'm trying to say is it would cost a lot of money and it would need quite the opposite of defunding a system to be able to do that. But then you still have the aspect of they just left the system and went back into their own personal habitat and surroundings and hanging out with the same people who got them there in the first place. Because there's some people who are just wrong place, wrong time, got in trouble, and ended up in jail. And now, now you've got to kind of deal with the aftermath of that. And then there's some people who just actually do change. Like the system changes them and they want to do better for themselves. But I've learned throughout just observation and knowing people and family members, like you can't change somebody who doesn't want to change. You can dump all the resources in the world into it, but that needs to be done, in my opinion, in the system while you're incarcerated. If we're talking about drugs here, as a rehab program more than a punishment.
So
it needs to be done before you leave. There needs to be something that drives you to do better. Because once you're out, it's almost like it's redundant. Now you've punished them, you put them in timeout, but it wasn't that bad, and I got to watch TV, and like I got to talk to my family, and I got to eat. But like if you can't give somebody an incentive to do better for themselves, they're not going.
There's 2 points I actually want to grab at there. One, our correctional system is literally supposed to be doing that right now, but it's not. Instead, it hires people
because they don't have the funds.
No, it's not because they don't have the funds. The prison system is more well funded than just about anything else in this country outside of the military or Wall Street. There are underfunded and under-equipped prisons, but that's because certain people tend to stack up their pockets rather than build up the prisons right. The Alec Corporation has been making that absolutely legal. There's a guy out here in Alabama alone, Sheriff Entrican, who decided that because it was legal for him to pocket the entire food budget for the jail he oversaw, he did so, several $1,000s, and then put it on a house that he then lived in, and explained it by, giving the prisoners he was supposed to be looking after basically dog food. Our system hires people like that who should be rehabilitating folks, like you say, but then they do the exact opposite, and we can't do anything about it because they have an uncheckable power. But the second thing is that if we can get to them as they leave the gate, if we build a system so that when they leave, they are supported and can get their shit together, we might not have to worry about the corruption in the system. That corruption in the system itself, as a deterrent, is bad, but it is still useful. But that said, though, I do want to, after you're done, Chantel, hand the floor over to Moral, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Dang.
Chantel, I do agree that if you're set up for failure, like you said, in the road to institutionalization is very easy.
Well,
if you're set up for that.
I don't think that anyone's set up for failure. But I think that
that's not really what I meant. But
once you have failed, there needs to be an incentive to not fail again.
I would like to hear Moral Upheaval's opinion on this.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have 2 things, and I'm going to start with the first one, which is slightly off topic, but you'll see where I'm going with it. We were discussing before related to drugs, and as far as it goes to things like needle exchanges, getting people into rehab, things of that nature. I don't think that society's resources should be spent on other people's decisions in that nature.
Right.
I think those kind of choices are your own. Now, I will agree that there's something wrong with the prison system, and I completely understand putting our money as a society into the prison system because that is our process for rehabilitating people. That is where we handle these kind of issues. So I completely agree as far as it goes with the prison front. My personal opinion, we need to get rid of private prisons. Everything needs to be federally run. That'll make so many of the issues disappear. So many of the issues. With that said, under federal funded,
for sure. We spend too much through private. We spend way too much through private prisons for sure.
Right.
They're not private; they're federally funded.
Yeah, and if we make that change, then I think we could do things like turn the federal prison system that exists into more of something like the word's missing. Something like Job Corps, where we have people who are going in and specifically learning trades and skills, which would more readily equip people who have become incarcerated for whatever their transgressions against society are to live a more productive life. I think the prison system should be more of a massive mandatory trade skill college.
So
I think that's actually the focus is.
So that's actually what I mean by a prison to profession pipeline. Once you walk in that door, you're stuck anyway. You're there for who knows how long. You're going to be bored. We throw a book of electrical principles in there, and there's a good chance you might understand how electricity works.
You're also talking about, people coming into prison. And
you ain't wrong, dude.
As far as a felon goes, you're handing them a torch or a sawzall or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
You're talking big bucks to do something like that.
Yeah.
That's true, but here's the thing. Although I do say that I don't want my money going into other people's decisions, the point of prisons is reform. If we put someone in a prison, it's because as a society, we believe that they can be reformed. That is the goal. I'm okay with spending money there. And I don't think prison sentences should be this simple mandate of 90 days, 5 years. What I think should happen is a judge should come to a decision where you are mandated to acquire journeyman level profession and pick a field.
That would actually be extremely detrimental to the mentally handicapped and those who are, let's just say, illiterate. And that would be a death sentence to a lot of folks here in Alabama because reading is damn near taboo. So folks who, like specifically the people who would end up in jail constantly, like often, they would be stuck there pretty much forever. There are folks who I've worked with on construction jobs and in landscape and in kitchens and so forth that end up committing petty crimes that would get them locked up for 90 days. And then they were given a sentence like that.
You can become a journeyman in bricklaying.
Yeah, you think that, right? I thought the same thing, and several people just do not have that ability. It's weird seeing it, but it is the reality. So I've seen some folks who can code and they can't lay a brick. They won't be able to cut grass. Certain skills do seem like they should be universal.
Well, there are those who extend it beyond what I would propose. Obviously, there's going to, no matter what you try to categorize something as, you're going to have a slim margin of exception.
Yeah, but that slim margin though is a bit too big to ignore. We would have to have an entirely separate process for them. That's one of the big troubles with reforming systems is because if we focus on reforms, typically we're focused on reforming it for a handful of groups and don't realize what kind of damage we're doing to the rest.
I have a question. If that is a statement that we need to deal with, I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. Where do those people fit into society outside of a prison?
Unfortunately, I'm not qualified to answer that one because I don't know. I barely know where I fit in this society while I'm in it.
Well, but I think the larger point I'm making is where would those people usually sit in society? What kind of jobs would they be doing? What sort of roles would they be filling? And is it possible to put them on a path that allows them to more adequately deal with filling that role wherever they could be in society while they're incarcerated?
Well, out of the intellectually handicapped or intellectually challenged that I have counseled, they tend to have jobs that are either creative focused, things like art or crafts, going to certain shows and selling things that they built, made, or otherwise acquired, or they're like hospitality, furniture, basically greeters, bathroom attendants, and so forth.
Some sort of a curriculum for those kind of fields could be established. You could establish some sort of a curriculum for those kind of fields.
I mean, there could be, but those same resources could be applied outside of the prison as well, and it'll keep them from going into the prison. There is
if we're already going to spend money while people are incarcerated, I completely advocate that the resources should be allocated to the point of prison is reform. As a society, we have established that the reason that we incarcerate people is with the intention of reform. And I don't think they should be sitting around wasting time where they're just stuck in a box for 2.5 years.
I agree.
And then the parole officer can begin working with them to fix these problems. I think this is something you can do in a prison. Of course, this isn't a pie in the sky kind of world.
The prison system was built for reform, because I've never heard of that, or I've never seen that stated, or I mean, that's your opinion, but like, where is it stated that the prison system was built for reform?
I like to take that one.
False.
So it was never stated that the prison system was for reform. I mean, by and large, people are going to assume that the prison system is for punishment for their crimes.
Right.
However, for these crimes, there's no point in just keeping people in a box and keeping them and then classifying, putting them into a category where they can no longer serve society or serve themselves.
Right.
Well, the prison system right now, what it is completely non-productive, both for the individual and for society. So I had two real questions, but the first question I kind of realized is that we live in a free society. So the root issue I was going to say is crime the root issue? But living in a country with as many freedoms as we have as Americans, there's always going to be crime, which is a typical leftist argument, if you will, is that we need to do something about the crime. When people have free choice, there is always going to be crime. That's just a given.
Yeah.
So the next issue is come back to me on the next question. Let me form it.
I think I know where you're going with that one, if I'm right. And it's a quote that I ran into by a philosopher that just states simply: is it a crime because we condemn it, or do we condemn it because it's a crime? Certain things we don't condemn, even though they honestly definitely should be crimes. Like, I'm gonna be honest, if you leave your basket in the middle of a parking lot, I should get to run into you. Like, I should get to run you over, break your ankle. That would be like it. Yeah, I'm kidding. I'm not that extreme, but you get what I'm saying. There's certain things we do that aren't crimes, but certain stuff we ticket and treat as if they're crimes. If you spit on the sidewalk, it's gross, but who's it really hurting? Who's licking the sidewalk?
But are you getting in trouble because you ran into them, or are you getting in trouble because you injured them?
Oh, no. You would be getting in trouble because you ran into them. Assault is only about the attempt and making contact. Funny enough, in fact, if I blow on you hard enough that it ruffles your hair, you could try to get me arrested for assault.
Oh, it's a hate crime.
You have a hard time getting me convicted, but you could definitely call for it. Press the charge. It would be a waste of time, but you could press the charge. And I know this was like
the real question is Mosquito Jones, do you think that what you're proposing right now and the issues with the justice system and the prison system, do you feel like this is a partisan issue?
Quick pause. We're gonna welcome Angela on real quick. Just a quick pause and get back to your point, Ben. What's up, Angel?
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
I guess it's a signal.
You can't hear us?
No, it's like cutting off.
I read something on this that it should fix itself within, like, if you're using an iPhone. Are you using an iPhone?
iPhone, yes.
Okay, so when I was trying to get on my phone with this, because before I put it on my computer, it said that like it lags for the first minute or so. It should correct itself, or you can, if your phone's not completely updated, it fixed it in the latest iOS 14.1 update.
The settings.
Yeah, look, there it goes. It's catching up.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. So, yeah, Ben, continue with your point.
So, Angel, welcome. My name is Ben, where we're talking about the prison system and what it means to be a felon in American society, dealing with kind of root issues and what happens to people once they're in the system. So, my question was, this idea of prison reform and the fact that, once somebody's convicted of felon, their options are very limited. Their productivity in society is very limited, whether they choose to or not. I mean, if I want to just go live in a ditch somewhere and not produce for society, that's my choice. However, everybody wants to be worth something in this world, regardless of who it is determining their worth. Do you feel like this is a partisan issue, whereas Republicans have one idea of this and liberals have another idea of this?
I feel like it becomes a partisan issue because people weaponize it as such. There should be no party lines drawn on whether or not somebody has the right to be free and live a life. There should be no party lines drawn on whether or not somebody deserves to be able to breathe freely. But people who need to weaponize any idea to push an agenda will seize on it and say, look, this person's a criminal, he should be treated like such, and so on and so forth, while completely forgetting the key problem is the system and not the person. A lot of folks will actively jump onto, demonize, and hyper-focus on the human element while deliberately ignoring the systemic element so that they don't have to address the actual problem. If the human breaks, there's another one. If they succeed, you have success, and you can do it again. But with the system, you get one try. You fuck up, you've made it worse. You succeed, you make it better. But one way or another, you have to address that system and be accountable for the consequences thereof.
I think
For that reason. Oh, go.
I think the criminals are looked at in a partisan. I mean, I think that it starts off as a partisan issue, and I don't think that it ever really branched. I mean, because if you think about it, you can't clump the left and the right into two groups and say they all think like this. But predominantly, the left is people commit crimes because they are victims of society, and on the right, people commit crimes because they choose to commit the crime. You can only commit a crime if you make the active choice to commit a crime. However, on the left, it's they did if they were
a lot of crime is opportunistic.
Yeah.
If somebody approached me right now and said, "Do I want to be a cocaine kingpin?" I would say, "Yeah, I want to be a cocaine kingpin. Let's do it." But I don't have that opportunity right now.
Yeah, a lot of crime is
at all.
In fact, go to a lot of rural communities. Like in a lot of rural communities, you'll see drug use like you will see nowhere else, specifically because of what I call the RX syndrome. If you live in a place where every single day is the same, no matter what you do is going to be the same thing, eventually the complacency leads you to believe that drugs will always result the same way. Doesn't matter that you go out onto the farm sometimes and ride a tractor for 3 fucking hours, completely oblivious to the world around you. Doesn't matter that there's a wasp nest 3 football fields down that will kill you if you don't know about it. People will do drugs out there because they're bored. You get caught with more than a certain amount of a certain drug, you are going to jail, and that changes your life. And these are typically teenagers that do that. So we have a part of that. That's why it becomes a partisan issue. It's not just left or right. It's not just black or white. It's people. It's going to change no matter what person lands in that seat. For instance, Kyle Rittenhouse is a controversial issue for some reason. Elijah McClain was a controversial issue for some reason. It's about the person. We focus on the person. But we need to fix the system surrounding it. We can't do that right now because too many people are still focusing on whether it's left or right. We're too big. I came here for the idea of creating a format for everybody to speak, and this is how we can do it. But again, we would have to figure out the key issue, which is going to be in the system itself. Which
is it the system that chooses how to observe the person?
The system is controlled by the people within it.
Or is the system controlled by the media? Because if media didn't exist, I wouldn't know jack shit about Kyle Rittenhouse.
You would think that, but you would eventually learn. It's just not. It's about how fast it got to you. If you have social media,
but by the time it got to me, that's just I can't prove anything. That's just a big old game of telephone.
Can't prove anything now.
Right.
So what does the timeline change?
That's the problem. That's the issue though, because if you are making decisions, or if you are forming opinions about something based on somebody, I mean, you got the information from somewhere. So is the information that you're receiving the issue, or is it the system that's the issue? Because you say that for some reason, Kyle Rittenhouse is a topic of discussion, and I guess I would like to know your side on that.
Oh, my side is that he belongs in prison.
Why?
Kyle Rittenhouse went to a whole different place to hang out with a gang on the block at night when he should have been there in the first place and ended up killing people. I don't care what
who gets to decide where he should or shouldn't be.
The law that says that a minor shouldn't be out on the block at night hanging out with grown men with guns. I mean, my mama taught me well not to do that.
What law is that? What law is that says that you can't be on the street at night because you're 17?
I'm gonna go ahead and throw a complete curveball at that one and instead ask you to ask the police officers that kept pulling me over when I was 16 during the day, asking where I was going. I didn't have a gun; I had a lawnmower.
Hi, I got pulled over probably more times than you when I was 16 because I was breaking the law.
Yeah, you were breaking the law. I was not. That's also another point I want to go to. But Kyle should not have been there. If you disagree, that's you. But objectively,
but who gets to decide where this person gets to be? Why do you get to regulate where he should or shouldn't be?
I'm not the one regulating.
Well, who gets to? Because if he shouldn't have been there, somebody said that. And why does that person get to regulate where this person can be at a specific time or where when this person gets to be there?
Because he's a minor. It was a school night, and it was a whole different state.
So that sounds like that's a parental issue, not a system.
It's something he should not have been doing in the first place, which is hanging out with a gang.
Like I said, though, that sounds like a parenting issue, not an issue.
I know, and his parents should be in jail too. Yes. Yes, they should. Every single time that a gang member has gotten into any kind of gang violence, we've been perfectly happy with locking them up. Kyle Rittenhouse joined a gang.
What about their family? Should we lock up their family?
Did they drive them? Did they drive them there? Kyle Rittenhouse was driven there by his mother.
Who drives?
Anybody asks what gang? Yes, a militia is a gang. It's a bunch of people in coordinated outfits carrying around weapons with the intent of being intimidating. That's a gang.
Regardless of who drove him there, he was
whoever drove him should go to jail.
Okay, but what if my friend drove me there?
Do you agree that someone who drove a minor to hang out with a gang in the middle of the night with a weapon and ended up getting him put in jail for killing people should go to jail in his place? Do you agree?
What gang did he go to hang out with?
A quote unquote militia. And a militia is just another name for a gang.
Which one?
You think I know the name of the? You think they have a name? What gang has a Facebook page?
I feel like if it's an organized gang.
What gang has a Facebook page? Tell me.
What?
What gang has a Facebook page?
What's the name of the Facebook page?
No, I'm asking you. What gang has a Facebook page?
Antifa, BLM. That's a gang.
Black Lives Matter is not a gang, and neither is Antifa. Anti-fascism is an ideology that is built off of being willing.
It's an ideology with a flag.
So what we're going down right now, so the idea of whether Kyle Rittenhouse is guilty or not is not going to be productive to this conversation as a whole. That's just my opinion. The gang he went to join is not a mainstream gang. I don't know the name of the gang. Chantel doesn't know the name of the gang. Mosquito Jones does not know the name of the gang. Kyle Rittenhouse is down here. Let's bring it up here. We were touching on something that I think is one of the main issues in the United States right now is the divisiveness and the team mentality of what is partisanship and the media.
Yes, and obviously, we haven't really even put any formality to any of the flow of this conversation at all. But I think it's working pretty freaking beautifully. I think I like what I'm seeing. Anthony, the plan was, sorry, you don't got a whole lot of guys showing up.
Yeah, what the heck, man? You got ghosted, Jace.
No. What Jace did was put out an open invitation. If nobody else showed up, that's on them.
Yeah, dude. I'm sorry, man. I just don't want you to feel like. Whenever me coming in here, I was scared I was gonna get ganged up on. I was getting super nervous. I don't want you to feel like you're gonna get ganged up on.
I'm gonna go ahead and break your nerves there. Let's check. if you check out my page, you're gonna notice that a whole lot of racists tend to jump on there and say a lot of racist shit. I am literally
I'm familiar.
I'm built for that shit. I'm built for that smoke. Point blank, I teach people constantly because if you're gonna come with me with a dumb idea, I'm gonna sit you down and educate you. And then if you want to swing, I'll swing. But we're gonna talk first.
Yeah, for sure.
I've dealt with, dude. I don't know if y'all know. Actually, here, hold still. I'll be right back. I have something for you. Give me a second.
Okay. Bye.
We were getting into what I wanted to get into.
I'm sorry, man.
It's all right. No, most of the things that people disagree on are not partisan issues, but we're led to believe that they are.
Yeah.
And Chantel, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Oh no, you're good.
talking about,
To
you know,
put it simply, like I can have a conversation with people who are not friendly with me very quickly. This was a
you
gift.
said you're in Alabama, right?
Yeah. This was a gift, and it came along with this. And I don't know if y'all can read that, but let me see if I can get it focused.
It says ALF Captain Confederacy.
ALF Captain Confederacy.
Gifts from the same people that gave me this. It takes very little for me to have a conversation with somebody, so long as they're willing to listen and grow from it.
I have to ask, was the
So
person
I'm
that
not
gave
worried
you
about anybody coming to gang up on me. Worst case scenario, I'm gonna make a friend, or flex on them.
the person that gave you those?
There's nothing to worry about, man.
Ben, what's up?
Were they white or black?
Huh?
Were they white or black? The people that gave you those?
Bro, when I say preposterously Caucasian, like,
I never heard.
so white and effective.
I know what he means.
Listen, I don't have pronouns, but if I did, it would be those.
Oh my god!
Like, let me put it like this.
Oh, that was
Just
so
white affect my credit score.
I might need to use that.
That's how Caucasian.
I'm write that down.
Like, I done had two bishops, Copenhagen leaning the Confederate flag on his hat when I met the guy. Chris is so country, I swear to God, he sweats moonshine. Like, like it's insane. They're hilariously Caucasian, yes, and they gave me this as a gift to come to their wedding, to be a part of their wedding. Like, no matter what, if you come to me looking for hostility, the only thing you're gonna find is a lesson. If you come to me for a lesson, you're gonna find a lesson. But if you come to me for a fight, you're gonna find a lesson and then the fight. I can teach, I can talk, I can do whatever is necessary to make sure progress will occur. That's the reason I don't have opposition. I have obstacles.
No, I'm in the Mid Atlantic. I'm in Baltimore City. So I mean, obviously I hear every angle of the Union flag. I understand, people in the South hang it as a symbol of the South, and frankly, there are people around here that fly it just honestly for the purposes of, frankly, being racist. And I'm being dead honest with you.
It's an intimidation tactic, but that's the reason that they gave me that flag specifically. In fact, they gave me this flag and the lighter in the same day, daring me to burn it.
Daring you to what?
To burn it, because that's what they were expecting me to do. It's used as an intimidation tactic. They wanted me to understand that I was allowed to have that flag and burn it in their presence to show that I was safe with them where I was going. Basically, this was the extremely countrified version of a hood pass.
Interesting.
Like that's yeah. So like
you're like rock on.
Like no, that's the thing I want people to understand. There are cultural things that need to be understood between societies. Black people are more than happy to have white folks in their neighborhoods, as long as you respect their neighborhoods.
Sure.
But unfortunately, a lot of people who hide behind whiteness and they pretend that that's the problem with their behavior make it bad for y'all. Let's say Jay shows up in my neighborhood. He ain't gonna face anything. But if some dingleberry rolls by there causing trouble for 2 weeks and then he rolls up, if that person happened to look like Jay, folks are gonna look at him different. Yeah. People like that fuck it up for white people. I'm gonna just say it. People like that fuck it up for white people.
There are people that fuck it up, I mean, and the problem is that, like,
we never talk about the ones that fuck it up for white people.
If Jace came to your neighborhood acting like a fool,
for black people, we always talk about the people who mess it up for black people. We talk about those who mess it up for Hispanic people. We talk about those who mess it up for everybody except for white people. And those folks who mess it up for white people want us to be silent about it. So let's stop being silent about it. Who makes it hard?
Wait,
White
wait,
people.
let me hang on.
I don't think
There's a lot of information to process. What was the last thing? The last thing you just said, Anthony.
Who specifically is it that makes it hard to be white in America? Because I can tell you, it's not all white people.
You're saying the people that ruin it for white people are trying to silence you.
No, the people who ruin it for white people don't want y'all to talk about it. Because if
Don't
y'all
want
talk about
us
it,
to
you'll start
talk
exposing
about
them
it.
in your own neighborhoods. You'll be exposing them in your own communities, and now they can't hide behind your whiteness. That's the only trait they share with you is your skin color. It's not your same beliefs, but they will claim them. It's not your same faith, but they will claim them. It's not your histories, but they will claim them. They're sociopaths, and they will hide behind your whiteness the same way those sociopaths will hide behind my blackness if they look like me.
you're talking about actual racists, actual supremacists, and stuff like that. So let me.
They definitely blend in with the population way too well, man. Like,
No doubt.
That's my point.
But
And
there's a
because
point
of that,
I wanna
they
make
end
about
up ruining it for y'all. You can't walk around with an American flag on your back anymore, specifically because of people like that try to turn it into a talking point. Meanwhile, I got mine.
hey,
Amen.
all right, guys. We're gonna do some real quick. So, Ben, you were on the point of prison, and you're about to ask him a question. You had a big point, right?
No, I was gonna say, so like the idea of like supremacy and white nationalists and even white racists. I think the media blows that topic out of proportion. Don't get me wrong, racism is alive in the United States. Racism is alive in the world. I think it always will be, because there will always be division because ignorant people don't understand the bigger picture.
Right.
However,
Take your time on it, man.
come back to me.
If you don't mind, write it down.
We're gonna circle back with Ben in a little bit.
Yeah.
Go back.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh man.
here's my question on the racism thing. Do you think that racism is partisan?
Yes.
Thank you. That's what I do too. I do too, because
Is part of what?
You should say partisan. And the reason I think it's partisan
Oh.
is because it's useful on both sides. It's useful in different ways, and that's why it becomes partisan. For Republicans, racism is useful as a tool to control their demographic. For Democrats, is a tool for weaponizing their demographic. If you can get people to assume they're under attack, they'll put up their shields and stay still. If you get somebody to think they need to attack, they might go for it. But that's what Democrats are aiming to do with a lot of things. They keep screaming that they're going to make progress. They keep screaming that they're going to do something good. They keep screaming that they're going to help people. But in the end, it's just about getting certain things done, and then they go on to the next thing that benefits them.
So you obviously can see that the media manipulates people. So you obviously. Okay, so you believe that like the media is definitely distracting everybody from what is going on, in their corrupt bullshit.
In the same way that a library shelf distracts a person from the entire library. The only reason they're distracting is because we choose to let them. We have to process. We have to process the information and understand what's going on. Build the whole picture. If you only see one side of a pyramid, you might think it's a triangle.
yeah, and I feel like this goes back to one of the first things you came in here and said that, it's, you have obstacles and you don't want to waste your time on people who are uneducated. And I feel like
No. I'm fine with working with the uneducated because the uneducated can learn. I'm not willing to work with those who refuse to learn. There's a difference, a huge difference. Case in point, y'all are here choosing to learn. There are people who I've had these exact conversations with who chose not to. I'm willing to talk to y'all.
And how do you fuel the fire to want to learn? It's because you have to be proposed with an idea that what you already know could have another side that you are intrigued about and that you want to know about. So when the media is out there spitting one objective, I mean, the media makes money. The only reason that the media has any type of relevance is they bank on the fact that the people who listen to them are uneducated on the topics and basically just uninformed or unaware of the certain situations. They want them to be their primary source. And when you silence or when you not even give out false information, and I like to go back to Tucker Carlson when he said one thing that the media doesn't have to lie to be
Deceitful.
exactly.
Productive.
Because
Right.
Carlson one time came on and said, how are COVID numbers being recorded? Because we just found out that one county in Colorado, and it was Grand County, Colorado, that 40% of their COVID cases also had gunshot wounds. 40% of them. Now that wasn't a lie. 40% of the COVID cases in Grand County, Colorado, also suffered death from gunshot wounds. But there was five COVID deaths in Grand County, Colorado, and 2 of those deaths was a murder-suicide. They just so happened to have COVID when they died. So out of the 5 people who died in that county, 40% of them had gunshot wounds. But who's going to go see how many people died in Grand County, Colorado, and what 40% of that is? So 40% would have been 100,000 people, or let's put it more realistically, 50 people, 40% of them have gunshot wounds. That's different than 5 people, 2 people died, of a murder-suicide and just so happened to have COVID. Like, that's deceitful.
And yeah, there is deceit, but that's the reason it's on us to know what's going on. We have to look at more than one source.
Right.
There is an attempt to deceive, but much like any liar, they only have one point of contact unless they can triangulate you. And a lot of people self-triangulate by choosing singular sources of news. I choose not to listen to Fox anymore, specifically because they give narratives that don't make sense anymore. They finally started doing it again, but only after no longer kneeling at the foot of Trump and the party. But CNN, same issue. MSNBC, they have a view. There's the Young Turks. There's Alex Jones for some fucking reason. There's all different ways to look at it. But in the end, once you have all the information, if you can't parse out the truth, that's going to be your liability. Media is designed to make money because America is built around serving corporations. They're not encouraged to tell the truth, because if they tell the truth, it costs them money, and America will protect money before people. It will protect profits before the truth. That is a simple reality.
When you say America, do you mean media companies, or do you mean America at large, or like the establishment?
America at large. If we don't break the kneecaps of big businesses, they're going to keep doing what they want to do, and we already know that.
Absolutely.
Just leave those people around.
Everybody in this chat can agree that media, the divisiveness of the media, and the inconsistency and like the lack of truth and transparency within our media is a serious issue in the United States.
The trouble being, if they're transparent and you don't accept it, what then? There's a lot of people who just cannot accept reality.
Accept it if it's transparent. Nobody's asking for your acceptance. We're asking for.
So, like, okay, Mosquito
If
Jones.
somebody
Like,
doesn't accept the truth, even if it is transparent, then what good does it do to be transparent? All it does is give them more things to like. If someone's not going to accept the truth, they're not going to accept the truth. That's just reality. Certain people just won't accept it.
I'm not. I understand what you're saying to an extent, but the truth, when it's coming from MSNBC and CNN, people are much more likely to accept it as the truth. They take that as the gold standard, especially places.
They will now.
The main issue is that it's become a really tough place to find credible data to what you are trying to find. I think I was actually talking to Chantel about this.
I'm gonna be honest. People will listen to CNBC, like MSNBC, all these other folks now, as if they're the gospel solely, and I do mean solely, because Fox allows so many lies to flow through. Fox blew its credibility by doing so.
By doing what?
That's the sole reason that people look at MSNBC and CNN like they're the gospel now. It's solely because of the halo and horns effect. When you see one person fall, you look at the other person to see if they haven't, and if they haven't, then you got more faith in that person. It's a simple human reaction. Since Fox basically fell over, the ones that are still standing are now the ones that we have to look at and hope that they're doing right. If they're not doing right, we don't know it because we can't compare it to where Fox should be. It's a matter of relative integrity. We're
comparing wrong answers to wrong answers, though. So, like, the example I always bring up is with the election that just happened, the election fraud, and Rudy Giuliani and all that. I'm sure you paid attention to that to a degree.
Yeah.
If the media, if MSNBC and CNN and ABC would have said, yes, the numbers look strange, however, it's not going to be enough to overturn the full election, that would have spoke volumes. That would have gone so far, as opposed to them saying Donald Trump's, completely outrageous accusations. It's as an act of white supremacy. He's overthrowing our democracy. That's the angle they took, instead of just saying, yeah, the numbers look strange, but it's not going to overturn the election.
No, they had that first approach literally every day leading up until the election, and then after the election, and then all the way up until January when the insurrection attack happened. And then it was called an attack of white supremacy and overthrow of democracy. There were some folks who did say it was an attempt at overthrowing democracy, because in reality it is. The same way that me stealing the deed from your house and getting it changed by a notary is me attempting to steal your house. But it didn't work. So just because it didn't work doesn't mean it wasn't an attempt. And just because it was called early doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Well, no doubt. Again, if it happened, it happened.
Yeah.
Joe Biden is obviously in the White House now.
They start off with a softer narrative, as you said, where they state that it looks weird, but this is the reality. And then when the voter fraud accusations kept on coming and coming and coming with no evidence presented in court, is when they decided, no, we need to take a hard line stance against this. And then it got worse.
Okay, can I say something really quick though? Because I think that this is an issue about.
If you don't mind, let's let Morrill speak real quick, because he had his hand up a couple times.
I hate him.
Come on, Morrill.
So I have to fundamentally object with an assertion that was made here.
Okay.
I do nightly news segments, and I spend about 6 to 14 hours, depending on the amount of news that's going on, consuming hard paper news daily.
It's a lot.
The accusation,
It's a lot of information.
the narrative crafted around the baseless, their narrative being that there was baseless claims of fraud, began happening the night of the election. And I will 100% assert that that is truth. And if need be, I will go pull up my notes that I have archived.
No, they started the night. They started claiming. No, they started that narrative. Let me step back and watch my phrasing. When Trump continuously telegraphed that he was trying to destabilize and steal the election by disrupting the postal service, by decrying mail-in ballots, even though he votes by mail, by doing all of these different things to slow down and disrupt the election, that's when the narrative began. And
Anthony, I gotta tell you, man, all that stuff about him loading up fucking trash cans and voter boxes and like disposable, it's all fake, man.
I wish it were.
Everything can be debunked.
I wish it were, but there were actual there were people straight up putting up fake ballot ballot drop-off boxes in order to disrupt the elections, dude. The only time that people have seen any kind of mail-in ballots that were thrown away, they were not Trump ballots.
I had heard in Texas that somebody had set up a fake ballot box in a Democratic area.
It's important that we recognize when all sides are failing to do right, because otherwise we allow them to continue to escalate their wrongdoing.
Well, and man, one of the reasons why I got banned off my live for like a good period of time right after the election was, I was going live and all my followers were telling me all the crazy stuff that was happening at the polls. I wasn't required to show my ID. I got turned away from the polls because I was in the wrong county or I already voted. What else? Turned away from the polls for like, I wrote them all down.
Somebody's dead mother.
That's a result of voter suppression. That's literally a result of voter suppression.
I need to find out where I wrote down all the reasons why people were turned away from the polls. I had like 8 different reasons.
Like the specific reasons all fall under the same umbrella of voter suppression. And that's a serious sin that our country needs to find a way to stop from happening, because we keep seeing it happen in every single federal election, some level of voter suppression. So if we can find a way to cut that shit out, there's no more false narratives that can be created. At that point, if every single person gets a vote and everybody is able to stand up and show their vote, and we're good.
And this is what I was trying to, Kinley, this is what I was trying to get at here. It took me a lot of time. We are not a democracy. The United States of America is not a democracy, and it took me a long time to accept that because I fought Mark with this. I can't talk when 2 people are gone. This is an important point I'm trying to make. We got to wait for him to come back.
In that case, can I go grab a beer?
Yeah.
I'll be right back. Good say. We'll put this flag up before somebody in this house sees it.
How's life?
What's up?
It's
What's
a
going on
day.
here? Where everybody go?
Yeah.
Well, you were gone and Jace was gone. She had a big point, so we went on pause. He went to go grab a beer.
probably
Now
good.
that you're back and there's at least 2 people here, I'm gonna go fill up my water because I already know where you're going. Like you and I had this conversation.
No, I know. I'm not Mark. I ain't fucking here to talk to you. Shit. Go, please. Jesus H. I'd rather
I'll be
die.
right back.
I can't have this conversation with you again.
I have returned, so I've been told.
All right, now Mark is leaving, so now we're just gonna wait for Jason Mark.
In that case, I'm gonna go grab me an ashtray.
What was your point, Chantel?
Barbie just texted me.
Who?
Conservative
By the
Barbie.
way, if you're under the age of 21 and have
How come
not,
she's not in here?
Are we live streaming right now?
Yeah, we've been live for an hour and 40 minutes.
Where? People can see us?
Look at the corner. We're on YouTube.
We're on what? Bye. I'm kidding.
I'm pretty sure we're on YouTube. It says live up in the corner. You guys see that?
Yeah, no, I see that, but like,
No, I couldn't see that over Jace's fat head. Hey, YouTube, I'm sussed out by this.
Sussed out?
Barbie, if you're watching, I'm about to send you this link.
How come Barbie's not in here?
I don't know. Listen, this is Jace's thing. He invited me, and I didn't even know if people were gonna like come. So
I'm surprised I got the invite.
What's up, dogs?
I knew I was
Casserole?
gonna be here. I'm playing for it.
I came back with snacks.
What I say.
He brought in some casserole.
No,
Hey,
it's at
that
mangoes. Frozen mangoes.
Mangoes.
that looks like
I
butter.
respect that.
Butter. Looks like butter.
And that's what it looks like to me.
That's some American shit. Walk up with a bowl full of butter.
I can't talk right now. I'm doing fat ass shit.
It was offensive. No, it was what was Caucasian? What was the adjective you put in front of that?
Oh, preposterously.
Preposterously.
Preposterously Caucasian. I fucking love that more than anything in the world.
Yeah, put it in the private chat.
Just for a little bit of background on me, those two that I was mentioning, the preposterously Caucasian couple, I lived with them back in Birmingham for about 3 years. When I met them, they had no idea they were racist. They had no idea. It took until about 4 years ago for them to notice it. We had our falling out, and Caitlin's like, you know what? Let me talk to him and understand what's going on. No, we're having like near daily discussions, but she's asking me honestly hard questions. Like, are white people born racist or do they become racist? I'm like, no. The society infects them with what might as well be a curse or a disease. It's not them.
This is the big problem I have with racism. Why is it always are white people racist because of this? I'm sorry. Right now, in today's society, I guarantee you, and you can't say a higher number, but a higher percentage of Black people are racist against white people than
Prejudice, yes. And
what
yes.
you bottom line.
That was something that I wanted to bring up earlier. Is that so? Like Mosquito Jones on Twitter or like whatever the social media platform may be, white supremacy and racism, they're by and large, people don't stand for it. People, racists and like people that are like, for example, a KKK member. Not that I've ever come across one, but they're not going to have big followings, and if they do, they are immediately deplatformed. People don't stand for that kind of thing.
Not true. There's actually a couple of Proud Boys on TikTok who not only had their platforms stable, they kept them. TikTok defended them having it.
All right. Well,
if you're not
the
consider
Proud Boys are different topics for
I
discussion.
disagree, but that's also the thing, though.
So,
an
like-
ideology that has already been identified as hateful should not have to be like policed anymore. We as a group, as the people, should be able to individually identify when someone's acting in malice. We as individuals should be able to tell when somebody's acting maliciously. And if
That
they're
was
gonna
a huge point of mine. Is that we, the people, are to decide what's tolerable in a society and what is not. We should not appoint our government to decide for us what we tolerate.
Right, but here's the thing: the government is still going to intervene at some point.
No, that's the thing,
But
though.
it's up to us to make sure that we can make those decisions for ourselves.
I want to throw out another difference in our communities. Y'all can make those decisions. We got to take them.
Whoa. What do you mean by y'all?
White Americans can make those decisions.
Right,
Black
exactly.
Americans simply have to take them.
So I'm sure you've come across this girl on TikTok. I forget her name. I think it's like Alicia or Aaliyah or something like that. She had 1 million followers last time I saw her, which was months ago. Straight up black supremacist. Straight up, it's like preaches about how God never intended to make white people this and that. Younger girl. She's probably like 20 years old, black. She got braids. You know what I'm talking about?
Right.
Yes.
No, I don't. But I
Yes.
can see this. I can see this happening. Yes.
Anyway, huge following. Every video she makes goes completely viral. Straight up black supremacy. Not that I have no problem with free speech. But if somebody were to be on the same spectrum on the other side of the spectrum, that would be condemned. Dude, I mean, you'd be in jail by now.
Richard Spencer.
Richard Spencer. Who's that?
Proud and like happily avowed white nationalist, white supremacist, and neo-Nazi.
On what platform?
A lot of them. This was before Trump's election, or right after. 2016 is the last time I really paid attention to the guy, specifically because I wanted to punch him and I wanted to stop being a terrible person. But no, Richard Spencer and Milo Yiannopoulos, or whatever his name was.
An American neo-Nazi and
Oh, wait. You're talking about the guy that endorsed Joe Biden?
Huh?
Is that the one that endorsed Joe Biden?
If he is, then I don't know why. Also, I don't care who he endorsed.
Richard Spencer is an American neo-Nazi, conspiracy theorist, and white supremacist who is known for his activism on behalf of alt-right movement in 2016 and 2017.
Jace,
The
let's
trouble is that no one's made it a point to disavow him or deplatform him, and then more people followed his behavior. The whole reason for the whole Tiki Torches through Charlottesville thing was because of people like him. They have a platform, and then they're allowed to continue to grow it, and then no one stops them. When somebody did, they were called what? Terrorists.
So, yeah. Anyway, Richard Spencer endorsed Joe Biden twice.
Okay,
Not that it really matters, but the point is, in social media, hello, conservative Barbie.
My kids are
surrounded.
The living legend. I've never had.
You are.
Anyway, the point is, that type of ideology does not get a platform on social media. It gets shadow banned and then just removed completely. People like me and Jace and Chantel and more people, we're not going to follow things like that. We don't agree with things like that. And that's the majority of America. When I say majority, I mean the vast majority.
That's the thing, though. Are you actively pushing back against it? Because if you're being neutral or passive in it, then you're still abiding its existence.
I don't think there's no neutrality when it comes to white supremacy. There's no neutrality when it comes to supremacy of any kind. You're either against supremacy,
right?
Or you're part of the problem.
That's the thing, though. You can be against it in principle and then not do anything in action, and it still reads the same as having no objection to it.
Well, back to what I was saying, and you can point the finger, but when I was talking about that girl, Aaliyah or Alicia, whatever her name is, I'm not like reporting her videos. I'm not saying, hey, we should deplatform this girl. I'm just making.
If she's advocating for harm of other people, then yes, you should, because that's what she's doing.
Well, I don't know. I'd have to dig her up. I'm sure I could find it. But the point is, people like that are allowed, and when I say people like that, supremacists of anybody but white supremacists are allowed to keep their platforms on social media and grow. Like every video she makes goes viral.
Okay.
I'm just saying, my point is there's a double standard.
I mean, that's a double standard because it won't have the same result.
You're saying it's a double standard with the media. I'm sure that there are people on opposing sides that recognize that. But what we're saying is that there's no transparency when it comes to the censorship. And we're the only ones addressing it. And, I mean, there's issues leading up to what this whole conversation is about, that you have the exact same output on. That exactly what I just said. You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
Yeah.
but
And
let
to
me
be fair, censorship is hitting everybody. Like black creators on TikTok are getting hit left and right, shadow banned. I get content violations left and right on nonsense.
Okay, but why is that a racial thing?
All right,
Because black,
wait.
because we're all white, and it's happened to every single one of us, and we're not
Wait,
white.
wait. You
Okay,
have the
but, like-
Mexican who's been
Sorry.
deleted a million times too.
Mexicans.
Like,
I didn't even know she was Mexican.
I can't remove race from any situation because I don't get to turn off the skin. Race
Neither
is
do
always
I. But here's the thing, like, are you?
the thing is, being white doesn't play into anything that's going to happen to or for you.
Yeah, it plays against me.
How?
Because I'm not going to go get a college. Oh, I don't get to
Yes,
go
you
get a
can.
scholarship because I'm white.
Neither do I.
So hold on. I need to debunk that. I need to say something. Just not that it's prolific, but it is the truth. I got a scholarship at Morgan State University, which is an HBCU. It was a diversity grant. I got a scholarship for being white.
The fuck?
And on top of that, the stereotype that black people get free college is literally made up from scratch. There's no proof of that, no evidence, nothing to back it up. Someone stated that black people are welfare geniuses or whatever else, and decided that black people must be getting to college for free. It's a way for people who are unhappy with black people being there, finding a way to discredit them.
No, not necessarily free, but move to the front of the line as far as acceptance rates, like Harvard or MIT or places like that.
The boost up is a real thing that has happened before many times.
For sure.
In fact, I'm one of those that benefited from it. But the idea that black people are getting into college for free was designed by people to discredit.
Based on what I just said, the idea of like who gets into college and who doesn't, I don't, neither one of us seem to give a fuck about that.
Yeah, and it's also individual, like individual institutions. They'll decide who gets in and who doesn't. And if you apply to multiple institutions, you have multiple chances. It's a lottery.
Right.
It is one that can be weighted differently, but it is still a lottery. Also, moral, please go.
Moral.
So, something I want to clarify because I see disconnects in conversation. I'm going to go ahead and just throw this out here. My personal definition for racism is in any. We'll go ahead and simplify even further for this. To apply a value to an individual for any reason outside of the content of their character is bigotry. Now, if that criteria happens to be the color of one's skin, that would be racism.
I can agree with that.
That's objectively my definition. So earlier I heard us speaking on racism, and then the term prejudice was specifically used. I want to clarify that if in any way, shape, or form you are treating a person differently or assigning a value to them because of the color of their skin, I consider that racism.
Okay, you can consider it racism. I'm gonna choose not to argue against that today. Specifically because if we had to do that, then I got to go into the argument of systemic racism, societal racism, environmental racism, the different flavors of racism.
I'd have to go into the theories of evolution, but we're not going to go there.
Right? I'll be totally honest, man. The whole evolution argument is insane because of, certain people evolved later and the earlier people are still there. That kind of nukes the entire beneficial.
If you believe in evolution, then you believe in species, and if you believe in species, then you believe, you look at as a German Shepherd, a smart dog. Yes. Is a Chihuahua a weak dog? Yes. They're different
My dog
species.
will surprise you.
Yes.
I'm not going to get into it.
Yeah. But are they still the same species? Yes.
Different genus.
I kind of had a little more on the topic that I've been sort of simmering on for a while here. Our bigger topic we were discussing was media censorship or unfair or biased reporting.
Wait. 1 second, moral people. Before we get into that, Mosquito Jones, I was arguing against evolution. I'm not saying that me and you are different species. My argument was against evolution, not that me and you are different species. Just to correct that.
I'm gonna be totally honest. I wasn't expecting you to be calling us a different species. It's important in my head to always make sure that in any conversation I'm in, there are like footnotes. Asterisks that if this type of person shows up, they need to read that note and recognize what's going on, not use my words against them.
Okay.
Like,
I didn't want to take anybody take me out of context on that one.
Same. Same.
All right, moral people, you have the floor, sir.
We were previously discussing, like I was saying, unfair or deceptive practices related to the media, and that's what got us on this entire topic. Now, with that said, it kind of makes me think of the whole 230 thing. although I would say that 230 should not exist, I would say that anyone who decides that they want to be a publishing platform for media, I do believe that 230 type standard of content liability should apply to the media for these reasons. Like I was discussing previously, the night of the election, they'd already established the narrative that any claims of fraud were baseless before any sort of research had been done. And I think it would be silly for anyone in this room to go ahead and try to claim to any degree that there's absolutely no fraud in this election. So to say that it's baseless immediately is objectively deceptive to start with.
That's what I was saying about the media.
Okay. Well, that's okay. So
It's kind of like what you're talking about, Ben. It's like they're already justifying reaching into the cookie jar before they're even reaching.
It would have been very easy for them to just say, yes, the numbers are very strange. However, it's just not enough. We get it, but it's not enough.
Well, there's fraud in every election, though.
It would have been easier
Right.
to say,
And they could have said that as well. There's fraud. They could have taken that stance as well, but they didn't. Instead, they pointed at Donald Trump, saying he's undermining democracy. This is white supremacists trying to,
because he continuously telegraphed that he was going to try to do that, and so by
they
stating
took the divisive
over and
route.
over and over that mail-in votes were always fraudulent. That's why they had to counter that narrative. If they hadn't countered that narrative, where would it have gone? Donald Trump would have continued saying that all mail-in voting is fraudulent. And if that goes unchallenged, what happens?
here's the thing.
The thing is, I mean, we can play devil's advocate. Would Trump have been so aggressive if the media hadn't just been like, "Oh, these are baseless claims"?
Yes. What if you don't know Donald Trump to back down on anything? That man don't back up from anything but a salad.
And you might be right, and I'm not going to sit here and argue it. But the point is, the media had a very clear opportunity to do the right thing as far as journalism goes, and say,
the right
"Yeah,
thing was telling people what was going on and explaining what they should be looking at."
right."
If
So
they
what
tell, now, if they're telling people, like what they were saying is that no, mail-in votes are not fraudulent and claims of it are baseless, and then that continued on up until the election when he started screaming that he'd already won. When he started claiming there were voter fraud, and then there was no evidence presented in any of the court cases.
So, all right, so maybe claiming that he won is a different story, but claiming that there was voter fraud, like TikTok removing videos, Twitter removing videos of people like with trash bags full of ballots, with people caught in the basement going through ballots, when they're not supposed to be. They've removed all this
video. There's literally a video showing.
You're damn right I got all those videos. I got the videos.
Ripping up ballots, like all kinds of stuff, man. All kinds of stuff.
There was absolutely voter fraud, and that's all the media had to say. Like they could have unified a country if they just took that approach and said, "Yes, voter fraud is an issue. We have to tackle it from here on out."
Okay, I'm going to freak out.
Trump has a cult of people who are listening only to him. You can't tell people who have chosen to listen to a quote-unquote leader that their leader's lying and then expect them to listen to you. They know better.
But the point is, who determined that he was lying? MSNBC determined that Trump was lying.
Yeah.
Not the actual facts.
30,000 times people have determined with facts that Donald Trump was lying. MSNBC didn't fact check.
Well, so wait, are you saying that there was no voter fraud? That our voting, it was
The only two cases of voter fraud that I've heard so far were Republicans.
Wait, you didn't hear about that girl in Texas?
No. What about it?
Dude, I'm not going to sit here and get into it, but there's voter fraud across the board.
Send me the link.
Okay, but wait. I'm going to blow up because this is what I wanted to talk about before everybody branched off and fucking left me.
Okay. All right, Chantel, go.
The media could have said another thing. What the media could have explained is, hi, you as individuals, as citizens of the United States of America, have no federal constitutional right to vote in an election, in a federal election. You have no constitutional right to vote in a federal election. And you're looking at me fucking weird. And that's just it. The citizens of the United States of America have no constitutional right to vote in a federal election. Let me blow your mind here really quick.
Please do.
A fucking democracy. The United States of America is far from it. Now, there was voter fraud in these individual states. However, on a federal level, there was not voter fraud because we, the people, don't have the right to vote. The fact that we are given the right to vote in our individual states is a literal privilege. The only people who can vote on behalf of your state are your electors, who are only okay. Your state legislatures are the only people who have the right to certify electors. So these people, it depends on what state. You know, there's 50 states, different state laws in every state. These people who you elect, which is also a privilege because the legislatures can literally go pick a handful of people and say these people are going to be our electors, but you are only a democracy in your individual state. You get to elect your officials who get to make decisions on your behalf in the federal government. But you as a citizen do not have a constitutional right to vote in a federal election. So it would have been easier for the media to say, hey, there was voter fraud in individual states, but unless the state legislature itself wants to oppose that and act upon that, the state legislature's slate of electors are legitimate because they don't have to, like I said, they can literally go cherry pick their electors. And the only way that fraud could have happened on a federal level is if the legislature picked a slate of electors and then people showed up and, disguise. Like, I don't even know how it happened on a federal level. Fraud happens on a state level, which doesn't have anything to do with the federal election. The fact that we're given the right to vote in a presidential election is literally just, they let us do it because they want us to think we're a voice. Now, this goes along with the majority of the vote too. People are under the impression, and like I said, 50 states, 50 different state constitutions, 50 different sets of laws. They're all different. People are under the impression that if your state votes and 51% goes for one candidate over the other, like let's take Hawaii, for example. Hawaii is a blue state. Let's say that Hawaii went crazy for Trump and you got everybody in Hawaii voting for Trump, right? Like Hawaii is blue. They could have had 80% of their population in Hawaii, of their citizens, vote for Trump. Their electors could have been like, man, fuck you. You guys elected us? Like, number one, like we're going to vote how we want. We are a blue state. These are the policies we want in our state. So we can just disregard the fact that 80% of you voted blue or voted red. We're staying blue. People are under the impression that you have a choice when it comes to the majority of the vote. No, the only thing that you have a choice in is who you're putting in the power, who you're putting in the position to make those powerful decisions. We are not, the United States of America is not a democracy.
The point of this argument was not to determine whether or not there was voter fraud. I mean, and Mosquito Jones, I can absolutely dig up some links if you really need me to.
I do.
Entire 18-wheelers full of mail-in ballots just disappeared. That's not the point. Whether or not there was voter fraud or not, all the media had to do was say, we understand the concerns of conservatives and Trump supporters right now. However, if there was voter fraud, it's not going to be enough to overturn the election. But instead, they said Donald Trump is going crazy. The right is losing their minds, and it led to an insurrection. They could have completely avoided that to begin with. There would have never been a rally that day to begin with if the media had just been neutral about the entire situation.
They had been planning that. They've been planning that rally for months, dude.
The
media is like, that's the thing. You can't blame the media for other people's behavior. That's like saying video games make kids violent. No, it doesn't. Those kids are violent. They're just using the video game as a means to, I guess, learn it. If you want to put the games at all in the context, they were going to do whatever they're going to do.
I don't believe
there wouldn't have been a Stop the Steal rally if the media had been upfront about the election.
They
Absolutely.
were. They were. But people,
I'll tell you right now.
The QAnon society is the ones that refuse to be upfront. They were the ones continuing to pump the idea that there was massive voter fraud.
Wait, who?
The QAnon community, whatever they want to call themselves.
Oh,
but no, every single source that I ran into was saying exactly that from the beginning. We understand what y'all are hearing, but there is no voter fraud. we understand what you're hearing, but there is no voter fraud.
But
We understand what
you
you're hearing, but
there
even
was
if there
no
is voter
voter
fraud,
fraud.
right? That's the thing. There's been no proof of voter fraud, so they can't make the claim. Meanwhile, Rudy Giuliani, that Mount Pillow guy, and several other people have been sued by Dominion themselves for what was it? Rudy 1.3 billion for the lies, and he capitulated. Every other Newsmax capitulated because they knew they were lying. There were people lying outright, straight up lying.
And he's standing.
I could sue you right now for voter fraud. It wouldn't mean anything.
Okay, but how far would you get there? Like they weren't suing for voter fraud. No, they were suing for lying.
For defamation, right?
Yes, for not just no. So the defamation claim was based on them making false claims about voter fraud through their system.
Mosquito Jones, if you heard the hearings and you heard what the judges referred to as truth and what was not truth, they said yes, this is true. However, there's no evidence of it.
Okay, you don't have to show me that one too. But again, and that also, like, evidence is the whole point of the court case. Why would they come to court with no evidence? The point is
that Dominion did what they did, knowing that they could have covered their tracks.
And if Dominion, okay, so if Dominion wins this suit against Rudy Giuliani, will you concede that they did not?
I will capitulate. I'll capitulate.
No, not capitulation, because you didn't make a claim here. You're backing up someone else's claim, so it's not a capitulation.
If Dominion ends up winning a suit against Rudy Giuliani, I'll say yes. There was no voter fraud. Joe Biden is my president, which he is anyway. It doesn't matter at this point.
Well, true, but I mean, that's the thing.
And look, my point is though, it does what I'm really getting to is that it didn't matter if there was voter fraud or not. The media had a chance to be unifying or divisive, and they purposely chose to be divisive.
I mean, that's kind of their job, though. They have to present different viewpoints from the same. It kind of is.
I don't think that should be the mindset, brother.
I want to throw this out there. The word divisive isn't the one I would use in this case. Different perspectives is what I would use. Now,
different perspectives?
Yes. A liberal, a conservative, a leftist, a far right, all these different perspectives have to be presented for people to
but one candidate, and this happens on both sides. We've all witnessed it. One candidate purposely taking another candidate out of context for their own benefit, or a news source doing that to someone, or vice versa. That is not constitutional. That is not that's not how, you know what I'm saying? It's not ethical. 100%. Yeah.
No, it's not constitutional.
It's not constitutional, and it's not ethical.
Constitutional doesn't have a place on that one. It's just not ethical. There's no need to bring in the Constitution on that one, specifically because the Constitution has no bearing on media or decorum.
The First Amendment is your freedom of speech, and the freedom of speech extends to you having the right to not only say whatever you want to say,
right,
but also not being forced to say something that you don't say. And then additionally, having the opportunity and the freedom to not only hear, but read opinions of others.
Right.
All part of your First Amendment right. It's constitutional, whether you like it or not. You want to silence somebody, they're violating your First Amendment. You have a right to.
That's the thing. I don't have to invoke the Constitution to call somebody on unethical behavior. The Constitution doesn't rank above the truth in my eyes.
What's unethical?
Unethical is anything that is not ethical.
Well, I mean, what was censored?
Yeah, we all have different morals. Yeah.
I mean, morality is relative, but ethics are pretty universal. Like, murder is ethically wrong. Rape is ethically wrong. Theft is ethically wrong. Like, so.
I never did that good at this part of class.
It's the simplest part. That's why people overthink it. If it hurts people, it's probably unethical.
Moral people, you got it, man.
Okay, so while we're clarifying, I just
on her computer.
Moral upheaval is talking.
She's in the. Oh, my bad, Barb. I'm sorry, girl. My bad, girl. You're in the waiting room, just being all patient. I'm so sorry. So, moral upheaval. You had the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, moral. Go.
While we're clarifying, I just want to make something very clear here. The legal definition for evidence is an outward symptom, sign, or indication. That is not the same as proof. What you're talking about when we start talking about, well, you can't prove, that would be proof. Absolutely proof. Now, the issue is everyone here is saying that there's no evidence of voter fraud. There's no reason to talk about voter fraud. There was no voter fraud. It didn't happen. However, there is massive, I will say this definitively, there is massive evidence indicating symptoms indicative of widespread voter fraud, defined as across a large region, in this case, 50 states.
Well, they determine what is widespread or not.
I mean, I kind of got to see the source that you're pulling that from.
They won't let you because they censor anybody that tries to.
They pulled most of that from the internet, but I mean, honestly, if you just watch the hearings, the court hearings, you'd be like, "Wow, holy shit!" I hope this doesn't hold up. The Rudy Giuliani and Jenna Ellis court hearings before they got rid of Sidney Powell.
Is there a video, a link,
they might be still up. If they are, I will find them for you.
There's no legal reason to pull down a court case, so they're not going to just delete that.
You would think.
If you want a source for these,
yes,
I know for a fact if you go back into the archives for NTD News on YouTube, all of the hearings are still listed there. They're too large for me to send you specifically, but they are listed there. I know they are there.
Dude, if you can send me a screenshot, I'll hunt them down myself. Like,
the
just
point
a
is,
screenshot of the names or whatever. I'll find them myself.
It's neither here nor there whether there was voter fraud. The point is that the media chose to be divisive when they could have been unifying.
That's the thing, though. They can't. If they lie, they get sued. That's the thing. If they can't tell.
They didn't have to lie. Okay, so like saying that Donald Trump is trying to overturn democracy.
What would be your version of unification in that case? Like, what would be?
Like I said, okay, the numbers don't add up. There are some discrepancies. We understand that. However, it's not going to be enough to overturn the election result.
There was no discrepancies, though.
You just weren't paying attention if you think that.
Okay.
And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you're not informed of what happened.
It's not disrespectful. That's just what you say. That's what you believe and see, or think, or feel, or whatever else. It's not disrespectful. You state an opinion, and
no doubt. There was absolutely
the big thing is that a lot of us are exposed to different ways of receiving information. Like I don't have the same capabilities as Ben. I don't have the same capabilities as Chantel. We don't have all the same capabilities to bring in all the same data. So this is right now is that like you know what I'm saying, like comparing the data that we're both using to back up our argument.
Right.
Either way, to make the news report to say, "Oh, Donald Trump is trying to overthrow our democracy." How is that the truth of the situation?
Because he was trying to destabilize and stop an election
nonstop. Was he just trying to win an election, or was he trying to overthrow democracy?
He was trying to win an election by any means necessary that would seem reasonable until he starts actively breaking down the postal service, until he's actively spreading lies, until he's actively recruiting help from foreign governments, until he starts doing stuff outside of what is considered acceptable by the American people, which he's been doing.
Basically, rabbit hole on something here.
We should have made the election an entire different topic for another night.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
But there is the bigger question I think that everyone here is kind of sitting on, but no one has got around to, is the question of whether or not the media should be legally protected as they currently are when they decide to present subjective information as objective. That's a larger issue of what we're looking at here. When they say Trump is trying to overthrow the election and he's a threat to democracy, something worth noting. Our country is not a democracy. Yeah. That is subjective information, and it's being presented as objective information in the middle of a news broadcast. Right. I don't believe that they should have the right to do that. However, if they were to say in our opinion,
in the streets.
Hang on. If they were to say in our opinion, then that's a completely different thing. But they aren't saying in our opinion or the way that we see this or whatever other contextual phraseology you can come up to go ahead and express that it is an opinion or narrative is not being expressed. So they come on and present themselves as an objective source with subjective annotations, and it's being allowed. And this leads to animosity from both sides on a topic that could have very easily been remedied through simplified and clear communication.
The media is
As much as I object to the entirety of 230 within social media over citizens, I do believe that the press is held to a different standard, being as they have special privileges that they are given. I don't have access to the White House on a daily basis for press briefings.
Right.
Even with the research that I do, CNN, MSNBC, ABC reporters get daily access to news that I never get to see. And since they are given that access and given those privileges, I do believe that there's a certain standard and responsibility on their part to present those kinds of pieces of information objectively.
Okay. But even if they did it objectively, the message will still be basically the same, that Donald Trump was trying to destabilize an election that could result in the overthrow of democracy if it were allowed to continue the way it was.
Yes,
that depends on how you see it.
So my question is, did you have an issue with the core underlying message or just their presentation? Because if it's just their presentation, not only am I kind of on board with you, I have no counter. But if it's towards the message, I still have no counter, because I can't counter what your opinion is, what your outlook is, but I can listen to that. Because if you have an issue with their with what they had to say rather than how they had to say it, because if you had an issue with how they had to say it, change the channel. But what they had to say, that would be the issue with the media. Now, what they're saying, the substance of it, the actual subject matter, the thing that matters in the conversation,
as opposed to trying to diffuse the situation, they just added to it. They said,
"Yeah, but that's what the media does, dude."
Well,
they're not a school,
but you as an individual and us 6 people understand that. But millions of viewers who are watching this,
I mean, you putting. I'm gonna be honest. You're putting a lot more stock in my intelligence than is necessary. I'm not that smart, bro.
It's not a here nor there, though. The point is, if you can see that they could have very easily diffused the situation as opposed to adding fuel to the fire.
Consistently diffusing against a hostile group only advances that hostile group, though.
Now, that's the part that I was sure we were going to get to, and something I wanted to touch on. And I need you to understand that this isn't a slight against you as an individual. It's just more of a empirical fact at this time is that there is research that I know at least I and 2 other people here have seen, and that we are now going to be able to send to you. Consuming 14 hours a day through the entirety of the election cycle of news, press briefings, individual evidence, hearings, and other reports. I would say that there was a massive lack of recognition by the entirety of the media, who I know was well aware of the information that I was consuming. And that is the larger issue. Now, as far as your question as to whether or not I object with the message or with how they presented it, both, due to the fact that they completely decided to neglect, and not only neglect, but then falsify and lie about the information that I know they had presented to them. There is no world where I allow ABC, CBS, MSNBC, Vox, Fox, Washington Post, Huffington Post, Newsmax, One American News, Alex Jones, the Young Turks, or Steven Crowder. I don't allow any of these people to simply come on and state objective facts related to the election where they don't address the fact that 3 semis full of mail-in ballots disappeared. A woman was watched for several minutes unattended, scanning the exact same stack of ballots through a machine on camera. I have the video. It's the State Farm Arena in Georgia.
Oh, I actually do remember that one specifically, and that one was because there was an error with the scan, and she had to go back through it.
However, at no point in time was an investigation done to see whether or not she cleared the machines before scanning them in. It was not done. I've been tracking it to this day. There was never an investigation to see whether or not she cleared those machines.
Okay.
It never happened.
It was told you.
But as someone
prove a negative, but yeah.
But
I
as
mean,
someone
I was going to say, I was about to ask for proof of that, but I remember you can't prove a negative, so I'm going to just step back on that point. So just wanted to state that out loud.
Yeah, but as someone who has consumed as someone who's consumed this information, I would say yes, as an affirmative, I do believe that the media has a standard that they should be held to, and they are being allowed to neglect the responsibility and the privileges they are given because they have this responsibility. And during this election cycle, it has become blatantly obvious that they are allowed to get away with doing these things.
Well, it's also
Right.
become blatantly obvious that social media has ruined media in general, because
Ruined or revealed?
talk about whether or not you're going to trust the media in today's day and age, and it's like, well, the idiots are going to believe whatever they hear, and it's up to you if you are going to educate yourself and, you know, look into what you're hearing. Like, the media can talk, but if you're not going to substantiate these claims on your own, then that's kind of your own fault. But 20 years ago, if something was happening, you had to go to the media to get that information, and nobody was ever given any indication that the media wasn't being 100% transparent. I mean, before the internet came along and like Google was a thing, and you could literally Google the answer to anything you have, any question you have, and before social media became so absorbed in society to where that's how we all communicate, like there's been a lot of times where stuff has happened in my area where people are talking about it on social media, and like the media hasn't even reported on it yet, you know?
Right.
So it's, we've absorbed this.
I mean, that's the thing. The media doesn't know everything, though. They only know what we tell them and what they can find, so they can transmit it back to us, basically.
My favorite point to make is if you're waiting for the media to report on something, you're literally just waiting on somebody else's translation of the information provided.
Consumer responsibility.
You're not getting the information from the source.
Consumer responsibility, right?
Yeah, like that's the thing. The consumer responsibility argument falls apart once you bring QAnon into it, because the consumer created the issue. Like when 4chan and its prank board B decided to put together the QAnon prank at first, it took off because people decided to completely ignore the consumer responsibility part and just listen because it sounded so fantastic. And like Chantel is saying, media can fuck that up. It can give life to things that shouldn't have life. You are right on that. And Moral's right on the fact that media does get held to a weird standard. But it's exactly that standard that can help break that cycle. People who started the QAnon craze spread a lie. They deliberately spread a lie. And that lie continued to go on and on and on unchecked because individuals are harder to prosecute. Meanwhile, media companies are really, really easy to find. They kind of broadcast where they are. You can sue. So they're going to be much more accountable. We can make sure that they are more accountable, but it's a matter of like properly assessing it. If they're telling lies, get away from them.
Well, then they do. That's the other thing that's also not highly publicized. These media companies get sued all the time.
And if you notice them, you'll be able to tell who's full of shit. The person that gets sued left and right is probably up to no good.
Well, what was the kid's name? Alex something. It was. They were at the Capitol and they were protesting. I think it was the first Trump rally, or like the first beginning of the Trump thing. Alex is his name, I think. Do you guys not know who I'm talking about? Huh?
Are you talking about in DC, the horn guy?
No, this is like 4 years ago.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Alex Sandman. But what's his first name?
Oh yeah, the smirking kid.
The guy with the hat.
Yeah, the smirking kid. Yeah, exactly. The kid that the media destroyed. Like, I looked at that kid. I live in South Dakota. We have a huge Native American presence here.
You do know that his family hired a PR firm immediately, and is the reason that he wasn't. Like, the media did jump on him, so did the rest of the society around him, because they found his behavior offensive. But then his family hired a PR firm to push back and say that, no, he's a good kid. Y'all shouldn't be looking at him like that. He had representation in his
No. See, the media reported one thing, and
then that PR company reported a different one to counter the narrative.
See, the PR company didn't need to report anything because the social media reported it for them. All the people with the cell phones who were there, who saw the actual story from beginning to end.
The PR company they hired developed a strategy for him to put that out so that he could clear his name. That's
We're-
literally what they do.
How did he win over $25 million then in damages?
275.
I'm gonna have to see that settlement.
275?
I'm gonna have to see that settlement because I do
Nip
not believe. Like, what? How would he have gotten that? Who?
Defamation of
We're-
character.
I'm gonna have to see that settlement. Like,
Look,
send
we're-
me the link.
Oh, Google it.
We're arguing over something that we all agree about. And the
If
point is
y'all
that
know where it is, and send me the link so I can read it.
I think we all agree that the media has far more sway in what the general public thinks than they should, and the media has strayed away from the truth as opposed to being partisan in what they cover.
Look, I'm just going to
It's
say
an
that
issue with the device rather than the technology. Frankly, people who are using it wrong.
I'm 110% against the media. I'm 110% against social media. Am I still on social media? Of course I am. Do I watch any source of news? Absolutely the fuck not. I'm sorry. The media is complete trash. No matter what, any story you can. This pen, I could stab my own hand with this pen, but if the media wanted to turn it, guess what? Pens are coming alive and killing people. The media is trash. The media is the biggest problem.
The media has far more power than they ought to.
Yep.
Yeah, so they do have a lot of power, but again, that's
Well, they're the only profession in the United States that's federally.
And like my stance is not limiting the power of the media. It's about waking people up to the divisiveness of the media.
I say we should restrict the power of
Not
the
even
media.
it's not the media that's
But when you say
divisive.
screw the power of the media, you're talking about the same thing we were talking about an hour and a half ago. Is about censorship of the internet.
And again, it's an issue with the device,
yes,
not the technology. The media itself is not the issue; it's the people in it. If there's an issue of dishonesty, then it is the people involved.
Like
Well,
what the anchors, because
The
that's
anchor, the
down.
producer, whoever. There is a
Yeah,
human element
that comes
making it
down.
bad.
You come to the owner.
I mean, that's the thing though. There's a human element that's corrupting it, and that's what needs to be addressed. The media itself is a useful tool.
So,
If somebody's like, if we use it correctly, it's useful. It's like a shovel. A shovel can be a tool or a weapon depending on
That's
what
why
you use.
citizen journalism has become so big. So, all right. So, besides the media and the anchors and the owners of media companies, what do you think about AOC going in front of a national audience and saying that like white supremacy is what fueled the insurrection on the Capitol, and we have to have something about these white supremacists and these insurrectionists? Do you think that's productive, or do you think that's divisive?
And I was there, by the way, just to keep everybody in perspective. I was there. So.
That doesn't change my perspective. I do.
No. I didn't expect to change anything.
I mean, that's the thing. That's specifically it. I recognize that you're human, and it doesn't change my perspective. Specifically because going into seeing the insurrection, going into seeing all of that, I recognize that you're human. You have a right to make mistakes. You have a right to learn from them. But in the end, if you went there and stormed the Capitol with them, you were with those people. And no matter what it comes down to, the reality is there were white supremacists.
What happened was
embedded into the crowd. And with them being embedded into that crowd, therefore they became your bedfellows. If I walked around your neighborhood with a bunch of people shot somebody,
the crowd that I was associated with at the Capitol, we were standing on the deck of the Capitol.
I'm not calling you one of them. Hey, I'm not saying you're one of them. I'm saying they're your bedfellows. They wound up in the same bed as you. If I walk around your neighborhood every day for 2 years,
well, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Some people just fucking ruin it for some people. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. But that's the thing. That's exactly it.
Oh,
It falls
wait.
upon y'all to separate yourself from the same way that it falls upon me to separate myself from black criminality elements. I have to go out of my way, especially with this corporate camouflage I have on my voice right now, because this is how I talk when I'm working on the phone. You hear me while I'm drunk or just spinning around town, I'm a lot more like this. Truth be told, there's a whole lot of cornbread in this here voice. But corporate camouflage requires that I speak this way so that people, take me seriously. There are things I have to do every single day at all times to separate myself from the people that everybody else decides is worthless criminals or whatever else. And it's this exact same thing that white people now have to do when it comes to white supremacists. I know it's a burden. I know it's a struggle. I know it's something y'all shouldn't have to deal with, but it is the reality. And until they are gone, it is a burden that will be stuck on your back.
It's not a struggle at all. The point is that I've never in my life, I'm white, I'm a conservative, I've never in my life met a white supremacist.
You have
I
not
don't
met an
know him.
open white supremacist or knowing white supremacists. They're not going to tell you unless they think you're one of them. In fact, the one thing I want y'all to notice is that when racist people do racist shit in front of you, they are subconsciously accusing you of being racist because they expect you to accept it.
So
Well,
do
no,
you think?
Fueled on the white supremacy notion. We are white supremacists and white is right. If somebody's white supremacist, they're not hiding that. They are proud
Yes,
of that.
they are, because white supremacy is an unpopular topic at all times, even among white people.
You said it yourself that it's an unpopular topic. It's
Yes, and that's
unpopular.
why they don't. That's why they're not open about it. You also admitted that you know they exist. Do you think you think everybody who's ran into them knows from the first second? Not all of them.
Wait. So the point that you said it's an unpopular topic just proves disproves the media narrative that this is a popular topic. That the events at the Capitol they stemmed from white supremacy, when that's just completely
Let me rephrase
idiotic.
my statement then. It's not a popular mindset. It's not something that everybody's doing. Not every white person is interested in white supremacy or fine with it. Most
Not
white people
even
are
a
pretty much
fraction.
against
Not
white
even
supremacy.
1% of
But
white people are.
Even if it was one dude, though, that's the thing. You won't know who it is unless he thinks that he's going to be safe around you. They're not
But
going
Anthony,
to know
what-
that.
You think it was irresponsible of somebody like AOC to take a national platform like that and say that the events of the 6th were fueled by white supremacy?
Okay, but that exact same mindset I want you to take to Donald Trump calling Colin Kaepernick a son of a bitch for kneeling for Black lives. I wanted you to take that same mindset when it comes to all the people who call Black Lives Matter activists terrorists.
I'm all about keeping the same energy, but when you call somebody a son of a bitch, is different from calling somebody a white supremacist.
Not really. Both are insults.
If you call me a
And
son of a
again,
bitch,
what did Colin Kaepernick do versus what the white supremacists have been doing?
you tell
Colin
me.
Kaepernick kneeled because he was tired of seeing black people snuffed out on screen. A lot of people, especially white supremacists, and their malleable bedfellows, fell into the narrative that he was somehow protesting the flag, the military, America. No, he was literally only protesting police brutality. And it was a peaceful, silent protest that everybody demonized him for to this day. Meanwhile, they're sitting here screaming, why can't you protest peacefully when cities are burning? Because we're still dying in the streets.
But why?
Meanwhile,
why
we're having this conversation where AOC was saying that white supremacists, people who y'all all seem to agree are bad people, should be addressed. And now that's an issue.
Okay.
I don't
How is
have
that
an
an
issue
ix
with her stating
Well,
that.
here's something. Here we go.
Only-
Matter notation only cares about Black lives when they're taken by white men.
No, we don't. Black Lives Matter.
Dude.
No, Black Lives Matter has been protesting for everybody because Black Lives Matter, the corporate entity, is focused on police reform, whereas Black Lives Matter, the movement, is focused on ending police brutality. Police brutality affects everybody. The only times you hear the counters, all lives matters or blue lives matter, is when Black Lives Matter enter the fray. And if you want to see proof, look no further than the insurrectionists, because they beat an officer to death, and I haven't heard a single Blue Lives Matter person screaming.
Hold
for
on,
them.
that's fake news. They did not beat
Barbie,
him to death.
go.
That's
No.
not true.
Yes.
Oh, really?
No, that's-
They said they beat him to death with a
Hang on.
fire extinguisher, right? That was the rumor.
Let me find it. Let me find it. A second.
That's
Barbie.
fake news. Conservative Barbie. What,
I'm
we got?
There we go.
automatically turn this back about this whole media thing. This is where this divide is coming from, because you're saying that Black Lives Matter is advocating for everybody, right? So now I'm going to turn the tables on you. The media never shows Black Lives Matter advocating for black on black crime or anything else. The media only advocates and shows Black Lives Matter when a white person is going after or has done something horrendous to a black person. Now, mind you, here's the thing. I have met a lot of people, and this is where I think a lot of people get confused. Me personally, and I know I've had conversations with other people in this room, the meaning of Black Lives Matter, we understand it. We don't get us wrong, but the organization and what Black Lives Matter turned into over these last 4 years, being funded by the Democrats, the media literally portraying it. Once again, only white on black crime is the only thing Black Lives Matter really stands for. And then nothing, there's no actual movement going into the organization. The organization isn't doing anything for anybody in a minority community. And that's plain and simple.
I disagree. And I'm speaking just as a quote unquote Black Lives Matter activist. I am personally working to end recidivism. I'm personally working in my communities, but you're not going to hear that on the news because I don't have time for that. On top of that, you do hear about black on black crime in the news all the time. There's no need to double cover that. On top of that, black people do care about quote unquote black on black crime, which, let me give a caveat, is just crime. Proximity is a key there because most crimes white people commit are on white people as well. Same with Hispanic people, same with Asian people, because our neighborhoods are still segregated, let's be honest. We still hear about black on black crime. We do address it. That's why there's a lot of black people in jail right now, including people who have not committed crimes. That's how effective our system is at handling black criminals. On top of that, if you listen to black music, you will hear us constantly mourning black on black violence. If you listen to anything Tupac has said, one of the key things he said.
Violence, regardless of whoever we're fucking here, it's violence. Why?
Yes, and we want that to stop.
It's violence if it's
the trouble is that the only people who never face a consequence for it are
black on white, but it's not
the trouble involved that everyone has been trying to address is that the only people who never face a consequence for killing black people are cops. And that applies across the board. They don't face consequences for killing everybody.
Whoa. I live in Baltimore City. Half of all homicides go unsolved, and 90% of those homicides are against black people by black people.
If they go unsolved, how do you know it's a black killer?
Well, I mean, 94% black population.
Yeah, white people go into black neighborhoods, and in fact, the whole reason for black crimes, the whole reason for black gangs in the first place was to protect the neighborhoods from white people coming in and killing folks.
Now,
this has been a consistent thing all through history. And then when street gangs became a thing, when black people could get guns, suddenly white murder sprees dropped.
Now, let me ask you, let's be real. Who do you think is killing black people in Baltimore City? White people or black people?
I don't know. And truth be told, that's kind of beside the point because that's another deflection.
But you just said the only people that get
an organization. Hold up, Black Lives Matter is an organization. It's focused solely on police reform. Black Lives Matter isn't a movement. Was focused on ending police brutality. Everything else was a deflection from that.
What is literally done that's been productive or peaceful?
Hang on. One of you speak first.
Can you send me a link from the actual organization of what Black Lives Matter organization, not someone like you, an activist who stands behind the meeting, but what the actual organization, the corporate side, can you send me a link of what they've done to help minorities in any way, shape, or form?
No, I can't. If you take that as a victory, it's not, because simply put, if you want to find that, you can find that. Their focus, hold up. Their whole focus has been police reform. But nothing else. Literally every argument about it otherwise has been a deflection. All of them. All of them. There was no other argument. Black Lives Matter, the corporate entity, is focused solely on police reform.
That's false.
Everything else was a deflection. The Black Lives Matter movement is a continuation of the civil rights movement that has not continued, that has not been completed.
I saw one of Black Lives Matters. I saw one of Black Lives Matters 2021 goals on Twitter. They want nothing to do with reform. They want completely defund.
Yeah, abolition at this point, because we tried reform for the last 7.5 years.
Okay, the literal what this literally says, what Black Lives Matter is, it is a decentralized political and social movement protesting against incidents of police brutality and oh, Jace, what'd you fucking do?
Hang on, Ant's here, so I'm gonna go.
He's gonna text me and say, "Are you on a podcast?" And this motherfucker gonna come creeping on it. Sorry, I have a really bad mouth.
Also, I do got to get going soon because I got to work tomorrow, like 9 o'clock.
Okay, we're about to hit on 3 hours. So
dude, we got to do this again. Mosquito Jones, I've been enjoying talking to you, bro.
Chantel was saying something. I want to let her finish, and then we go to moral if y'all don't mind.
Okay, social movement protesting against incidents of police brutality and all racially motivated violence.
Okay. Does that change the mission, though?
You said that they solely care about police reform.
You're arguing semantics now.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes. You're arguing semantics now. Cool. Fine. Let's adjust my statement. They are fighting police brutality and racial violence. Now, what does that change?
All racially motivated violence.
Okay, now what does that change?
The example of any time they've ever peacefully or productively implemented anything for the Black community. And I'm sorry, all
Do you know why?
violence.
Do you know why? Do you know why?
All
Do you know why?
Violence,
Do you know why?
all racially motivated violence.
Do you
So
know why,
Black people are racist against white people. Technically, they should be standing up for me too.
They are.
Wow. How?
You're not okay. There's a little guy, Cannon Hennett. Black Lives Matter were the only people that were trying to do anything for him, but white people did jump on the board to try to weaponize his story. There was also Daniel Shaver and so forth. When white people are killed by cops, Black Lives Matter does speak up. You will never hear the All Lives Matter crew do that, nor the Blue Lives Matter.
It's not spoken loud enough.
Okay, that's because you're not listening.
So
even in this conversation, you're choosing not to listen to me, and I'm speaking to you directly.
But can I ask you, how come you've asked everybody in here for a link when they have presented something to you and you want to do research? How come when I asked you to send me a link of what this organization has actually done, not you as a
no, it's because I've heard that exact same argument, the whole request the link thing from people about Black Lives Matter who are doing so in bad faith.
No,
unfortunately, I'm gonna take your word that you're not acting in bad faith, but in the same vein, because of the behavior of the people, I'm not willing to invest the energy.
How do you feel about
victory? You can.
Real quick.
But go.
How do you feel about Candace Owens?
Candace Owens, I don't like her. I don't want anything to do with her.
Why?
I just don't.
I'll bring you back, Mark. I promise.
But why though?
I don't have to have a reason and not want to involve myself.
But is she a disgrace to the Black community? Like, is she doing?
Is she a representative of the Black community? No.
What?
That's what she can't. She's not a representative of the Black community. Therefore, she can't be a disgrace to us. And
I just want to know why she doesn't represent the Black community. I'm being
no
ignorant.
one person represents the whole Black community, and in fact, that's one thing that we absolutely can't stand: the fact that every single one of us gets treated as if we're supposed to be a representative for the whole community, whereas not one of you will be treated as if you're representative for yours.
I'm representative.
You're not representing the whole white race. You're representing people who look exactly like you.
Yeah, I gotta disagree. Anthony, I gotta disagree with you, man.
If you act like an asshole, does that mean every white person's an asshole? No. And if anyone tries to treat it like that, then they're going to be called an idiot. Meanwhile, if I act like a thug, everybody gets to call every Black person a thug. And guess what? They don't get scrutinized half as hard as I would be if I would say you were an asshole because a white guy messed with me.
I quite literally don't think I've ever called a Black person a thug. Ever.
That's not my life. It's not about you. It's
No, but I'm
society
just
as a whole.
There's more of me.
It's not just you. That's the thing. You're focusing too hard on just yourself.
But look,
your behavior doesn't change. Your behavior doesn't define everything about society.
Okay, so then how come? So if you're now saying that one person, right? Everybody's different, but you're asking us to send you the link. But we've had bad experiences trying to talk to people in the past. But we're willing to give you our energy to send you the links that you wanted.
I haven't gotten a single link yet.
But wait, now you're telling me you won't send me a link because of people in the past. So now you're judging me, who you know nothing about me. Honestly, at this point, like I'll announce it to the world. I say fuck the left and fuck the right. I don't give a shit about either actual party itself. It's me and the fucking Constitution. I want to educate myself, but you're telling me because of people in the past who seemed like me, right? Who seemed like
people who use these same arguments as you. And again, it's not a judgment of you. It's a refusal to give you my energy. If you take that as a judgment of you, that's on you.
If I might go ahead and just hop in here for a minute, because this is a topic that I was actually kind of somewhat excited to talk about, because it's something I have a solution to.
I've only got 4 minutes left. I do have to
So
roll.
I'll be quick with this. All right, so I'm just going to give a massive rundown, a long rant here. Personally, I believe that Black Lives Matter is one of the most manipulative wastes of time that has ever existed. The organization in itself. The sentence makes sense. The movement most of the time is led by people who are misguided when it comes to their numbers. I hear that Black people are disproportionately killed compared to white people. When you take the demographic of all white people divided by the number of white people killed by cops, then do the same thing with Black people. It's under the assumption that every single white person commits a crime and every single Black person commits a crime, and you can divide things down evenly, which is abhorrently
Short and shallow sighted.
Yes, thank you. That'll work. That'll be a good description for it. A better way to go ahead and run that data would be off of interactions with the police. This has to do with population densities, and I couldn't tell you what the cultural reason for why Black people decide to migrate to large cities is. It is what it is. It's a factor we could look into, do some sociological research on. However, I don't think that it makes a large difference. When I think the larger problem is we have an organization that's specifically advocating to take money away from police departments, which are already terribly funded and poorly ran. Right now, the average police officer gets about 13 hours a year of training, and about 65% of their funding goes into administration. I think a better solution that we could all probably advocate for is something such as reallocating the city and local police departments to the sheriff's office run by the state, beholden to the Constitution, and therefore upholding and protecting the rights of the citizens, and getting rid of things such as frivolous interactions related to equipment violations when it comes to lights and other things. That would massively reduce the issue. Now, the other thing that comes up a lot is this whole implementing social workers issue. Social workers being brought into the line of duty means you either have to train them up to be able to protect themselves, give them a weapon, and at that point, they're basically just a glorified trained police officer when it comes to dealing with social issues. The better issue
on that one, because I've met many social workers, healthcare workers, so on and so forth, who have never needed a gun to handle their patients. They would only be called when they think there's a mental health emergency, not when there's something like a bank robbery. I do want to make sure that is specified. Okay.
Right. So the only way to go ahead and make those determinations is a cop went to the scene. So now you have to pay for cops and you have to pay for social workers. Or you have to risk sending a social worker somewhere without a cop and no way to clear the scene, which would be dangerous. I think we'd all think that's a bad idea. You send them into a domestic dispute and all of a sudden they get stabbed. It's not a great solution.
Right.
You're either paying for both or you're risking the lives of social workers. I think a better solution would be to reappropriate them to the sheriff's department, realign what the police are actually interested in doing and what they are motivated into doing, and get rid of the large funding farming that happens off of the society's back when it comes to speeding traps, tail light tickets, things of that nature. You could
would you also agree that we need to find a way to limit the amount of taxpayer money they can use to pay off their misconduct lawsuits?
It wouldn't be funded on taxpayer money.
They are right now, but
my solution takes that aspect out of it.
You're massively reducing the unnecessary interactions, which would drastically reduce these incidents. Now, another benefit of this entire solution is reappropriating both of these two jurisdictions under the sheriff's department means that all the funding goes directly to a police organization to start with, and you get rid of the 60% waste related to admin. Doing so means that you could go ahead and up the training for police officers from 13 hours a year to literally 20% of their time on shift. Half of the shifts are doing Thursdays, half the police force is doing Fridays. They can do escalation and force training, de-escalation and social training, and they can do combatives training. Let's be real about a situation real quick. George Floyd died. The leading cause of death on the certified autopsy lists catastrophic cardiovascular failure. His heart had mechanical damage and failed. It exploded. We can argue all day about why it happened. I don't care why it happened. Because at the end of the day, if we had better trained police who we could allow to put someone into a chokehold and knock them out, George Floyd would have been knocked out, handcuffed while unconscious, and tossed in the back of a police cruiser. He would still be alive today if we had better trained police officers who were allowed to do what they needed to do.
We need better vetted cops in that case, because he could have put him in a chokehold and done that. He could have done it, but he chose not to.
It's illegal.
It's illegal.
So was a knee on the neck.
No, it's not. That's part of their police training. It's part of that 13 hours a year they get. That is a failure of us as a society training our police. Us as a society have failed our police.
Guys, we are coming up on 3 fucking hours right now. Yeah. We are going to end it right here. So
actually, before we do, I do want to step this one out there. Moral. I want you to know that you literally step by step explain the process by which defund the police is supposed to work.
No.
Just saying.
No, you're not
Yes.
defunding them.
Yes.
You're
No. See, what you might be thinking of is abolition, which is removing the power of the police. Instead, it was
You've already
aimed
said
at
that that's the current
reallocation.
goal. That is
See,
BLM's current goal.
Reallocation is
If the,
what you were
idea
talking
is
about.
police reform,
The
then I
Black Lives
agree.
Matter is
However,
aiming for
BLM
abolition, and I don't blame them. But what you were describing is straight up one of the scenarios for
Police
defunding the
reform.
police.
The-
So
that
as you
is
might
a
have, so as you
defunding
might
of
be
the
able to
police.
see, there is middle ground right there that we're already on.
Well, what I'm saying is that is not a defunding of the police department. If anything, you'd have to increase their funding.
But
If
no,
anything.
that's the thing. Defund the police rolls off the tongue very well. The reality is we were aiming to reallocate supplies to save lives. I just wasn't around for the pitch meeting to give that slogan. You are already on the middle ground.
Anthony, say that again. Anthony, say that
Reallocate
again.
supplies to save lives. Yes. It's not about taking away public safety. In fact, it's about increasing it so that police don't consistently end up in life and death struggles. Cops don't deserve to be fighting every single day. Neither do we. If we have to put up with police being here, we need to be able to look at them and trust that they're not about to fuck somebody up. And if we think they are, that person needs to be dangerous enough for us to not question it. I need to be able to trust police to not fuck me up if I do something stupid, but to be able to take me down if I'm doing something dangerous. You know?
I agree with you on how.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree with you
my
on how
entire-
things need to be reallocated. You're right. Things do need to be reallocated immediately, but we all have
Well,
to figure
my-
out how best to apply that.
So really, just like like our terminology, just like is on different levels, and we don't know what each other.
Exactly.
So
We
that-
don't know what each other is saying. Okay.
who does that?
So here's
Okay.
here's my objection to the entire statement.
Because I mean,
Sorry.
anything anybody is saying in a lot of concepts are being mirrored in this conversation. If you haven't noticed,
Right. And frankly,
That's true, but I think if I
Go
might
ahead.
go,
Go.
So my entire stance, the point of my statement, what I'm trying to bring forward is that BLM, the organization in itself, BLM, the sentiment and movement, both are acting in a counterproductive manner to reaching what I see as the optimal solution.
Right.
I would also say that this needs paired with what I was saying previously when it comes to getting rid of federally funded prisons, or as I refer to them, private prisons, and everything needs to be put into a federal basis, direct funding to it, and we need to go ahead and implement, like I was saying, a Job Corps type scenario where people are sentenced to acquire a certification in a career field rather than a specific amount of time where they sit around and do nothing.
I agree.
But BLM in itself, both the movement and the organization are counterproductive to meeting either one of these goals, which is why I think they're abhorrent, manipulative for the most part, and destructive.
Well,
Okay.
Let me ask you a
So
quick question.
that's gonna be our closing principle right there. We're gonna follow up next time we do this, which I'd love to do this again.
You gotta do another one of these, brother.
Reform over defund.
And I'm still on the defund and abolition side of that. I'm gonna be straightforward.
All right, cool. We're gonna continue this principle on the next one.
Yeah. Yeah. Good to meet you, Mark.
Mosquito Jones, good talk, man.
Dude, yeah, I really appreciate it, man. I really appreciate everybody being here, dude. I hope you didn't feel like ganged up on at all or at any time or anything like that, Anthony. Hopefully, let's get some more people in here.
Yeah, bring some reinforcements next time, man.
Have you met me, man? I'm basically Jet Li in the library. Send me people.
Yeah, but yeah, dude, I don't want to make it seem like let your people know how it went. No, like get with some of your people and let them know that it was badass, and let's do it to where I actually got to do some work up here.
Yeah, because I'd honestly rather talk to you than these fucking guys anyway.
Nobody wants to know
You'd
this
rather
shit.
talk to me. You make terrible decisions throughout your life.
Intel under
No,
titty.
not you, Barbie.
Under titty.
Oh man.
Listen.
But yeah, this shit was real productive. let's close on that, and let's plan to do it. Let's plan to do it again sometime soon.
Y'all be good. Be safe.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate everybody, and we'll do it again soon. All right.
All right.
Y'all stay out, again. Stay the fuck out of trouble. I'm watching.
Thanks for having you guys.
Especially you,
Bet,
Ken.
that's a bet.
Oral. Watching you.
All right, bet. I'll see y'all, man.
All right, y'all be good.
Oh, yeah.